The Nine Lights Heavenly Palace's heart, a place no one dares approach, now holds two figures suspended in midair, and Venerable Hidden Universe just cried out in shock. Yunqi is asking for a small favor, but nothing about his smile suggests the request will be small. Like and subscribe to see what price this audacity demands. Venerable Hidden Universe could not help but let out a cry of shock. It was so alarming that clamor immediately broke out in every corner of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace. This was especially true for the great palace masters. All of them had instantly soared outside, but they immediately froze in midair right after. Not a single person dared to continue moving forward. How could the heart of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace be approached so easily? However, to their complete astonishment, the two figures floating in the air were right above the nine great palaces, the most important place in the entire Nine Lights Heavenly Palace, and no one had been able to detect their approach. In a split second, the alarms of Nine Lights Heaven had rung out from all over, and the figures of those who had rushed out immediately were like flying locusts filling the sky. For someone to invade noiselessly into the core of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace was a huge matter that had not occurred for many years. From the palace masters to the disciples of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace, there were a grand total of a few million people, and this did not even include the bulk of the outer palaces of the extensive Thousand Desolate Realm. For two people to have just invaded like that, it would be common sense to think that they were simply courting death. If every single disciple spat at them, it would be enough to drown them. But those palace masters, hall masters, and disciples who fled from the heavenly handle Yun clan were the ones who had turned pale immediately. Why would those two evil omens who scared them out of their own wits suddenly appear here? Yunqi, so they are the ones who killed the chief palace master. Palace Master Hidden Mirror spoke in a low voice as a black sword appeared in his hand. You've come at the right time. You've saved us the energy to pursue and eliminate you. We will offer you as a sacrifice to appease the spirit of the chief palace master today. Hidden Mirror, stop! At his words, several shouts of different degrees of panic rang out simultaneously. Palace Master Hidden Universe gave his all to suppress both the sword energy and profound energy that was just released, and shouted, "Don't make a move!" Palace Master Hidden Mirror's gaze swept across a few faces as he lowered his voice. This is the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace. Even if their strength is half a step away from becoming a divine master, what do we have to fear? I said, don't make a move. Palace Master Hidden Universe's tone turned grave. Palace Master Hidden Mirror had not followed him to the heavenly handle Yun clan. He had not personally witnessed how the desolate Heaven Dragon clan was reduced to a bunch of corpses in the blink of an eye. He had not seen how the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign was cut into 8 pieces in a single instant. That scene, which was frightening beyond compare, almost caused the souls of the crowd of divine sovereigns to collapse. Even if they were to face such a frightening figure head-on and emerge victorious based on the great number of people they had, the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace would surely still be stained with blood. The number of casualties would be beyond comprehension. The Nine Lights Heavenly Palace had just lost the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign and Venerable Hidden Sword. They could no longer bear any more losses. Hidden Universe is right, another palace master stated. You did not witness how frighteningly powerful they are. It's so much more than you can imagine. Since they have dared to show themselves today, it naturally means that they are not afraid. One day we will take revenge for the death of the chief palace master. But that day is not today, and it definitely will not be in this place. Palace Master Hidden Mirror clenched his fists tightly and calmed his breathing down. The strength of the palace masters who returned was not any weaker than his, but their fears were real. Moreover, if they exchanged blows here, no matter what the outcome was, the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace would turn into rivers of blood. Venerable Hidden Universe stepped forward and said submissively, I see that it's Venerable Yun and Miss Fairy. I wonder how can the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace be of assistance to the two of you? Though extreme hatred and fear gripped him, he had no choice but to squeeze out a humiliated smile. Be of assistance? Yunqi's low voice penetrated the entire Nine Lights Heaven. We just killed your chief palace master. Not only are you not trying to avenge him, but instead you are being submissive and trying to curry favor. Ha, so this is the so-called Nine Lights Heavenly Palace. It seems that they have raised a useless, wretched bunch. Those words could be seen as an extremely humiliating poison, which was enough to agitate and anger anyone. The disciples of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace exploded in anger immediately. But Palace Master Hidden Universe merely laughed heartily. and had the crowd quiet down swiftly before the noise level could get any higher. Venerable Yun's words are incorrect. The two of you did indeed kill the chief palace master, but you too have great strength akin to that of divine masters. Though the chief palace master did not mean to offend the two of you, his death was not in vain. Although the sadness of our loss is tremendous, we have no intention to pursue this matter. On the contrary, we, members of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace, have always respected strong practitioners. Since the two of you have come, it means that you are our guests. If you have any requests, we are willing to help in any way we can. And if you are able to give us a pointer or two, it would be the fortune of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace. The words of Palace Master Hidden Universe were clearly ones of humiliation and defeat, but he had said them in such a magnanimous and upright tone. At the same time, he was telling all of the disciples that these were two people that they should never offend, and that no one should make any reckless moves. Very good, I like clever people like you. Yunqi gave a small smile and said, in that case, I would like to ask for a small favor from the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace. I believe that strong practitioners such as yourselves would not reject my request, would you? Please tell us what you need. Palace Master Hidden Universe said, as long as it's something that the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace can achieve, we will definitely not disappoint you. It's a simple task. Yunqi continued. It seems that Nine Lights Heavenly Palace has existed in this Thousand Desolation realm for over 100,000 years. No matter how useless you are, you should at least have a few treasures. I'm lacking a few devil crystals and devil jades recently. Palace Master Hidden Universe heaved a sigh of relief inwardly and hurriedly said, I see. How many does Venerable Yun require? As long as the amount is bearable, we are willing to offer it to you. That won't be necessary. Yunqi glanced to the side and said, you can just take me to your treasury. What? Palace Master Hidden Universe's head whipped up and the color of everyone's faces changed drastically. The treasury was where all secrets and inside information were accumulated by the sect. It was definitely a forbidden area where outsiders could not set foot into. Not more than 5 people were able to enter the treasury, even in a sect as huge as the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace. Why is there a problem? Yunqi asked coldly. Venerable Yun, this. Palace Master Hidden Universe tried his best to remain calm and said, the treasury is the greatest forbidden area of a sect. It is where the entire sect's foundation is, and outsiders are never allowed to set foot in it. On that note, I believe that. I don't want to listen to your nonsense, Yunqi interrupted him. Either you bring us in, or I'll kill you and then go in myself. You don't have a third option. Don't blame me for not giving you a chance. Every word was spoken coldly and decisively, without any room for negotiation. Venerable Yun, this. You scoundrel. No matter what Palace Master Hidden Universe wanted to say, Palace Master Hidden Mirror had already been utterly angered. Hidden Universe. They have already humiliated us to the core, and you're still trying to curry their favor like a dog. Are you trying to throw away the dignity of our Nine Lights Heavenly Palace? A black sword appeared in Palace Master Hidden Mirror's hand, as his profound energy erupted from within. He had already soared into the skies and was rushing toward Yunqi as he shouted, everyone, attack! Even if the entire Nine Lights Heavenly Palace is drenched in blood, we will bury them here forever. Wait! Hidden Universe stretched out his hand quickly, but failed to hold Palace Master Hidden Mirror back. He gritted his teeth and chased after him, holding Palace Master Hidden Mirror in a deadlock. By the time he faced Yunqi again, his expression was as calm as still waters. Yunqi, we've already given in many times, don't go too far. The Nine Lights Heavenly Palace has stood proud and tall in the Thousand Desolation realm for many years. The number of secrets we have accumulated is definitely greater than you can imagine. If we bring out our trump card, eliminating just the two of you will definitely not be difficult. If we are able to resolve our disputes, the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace is willing to take a step back. But if you want the fish to die and the net to break, our Nine Lights Heavenly Palace will accompany you to the end. No, you're wrong, Yunqi said serenely. Only the fish will die, the net will not break. Palace Master Hidden Universe's expression darkened completely, and he let out a sudden roar. Get into formation! His command was quickly passed on to everyone through sound transmission. The 8 Great Nine Lights Palace Masters who had been waiting to strike after accumulating their powers soared forward and made their move. In an instant, 8 pitch-black sword formations burst forth from the skies of Nine Lights Heaven. The moment that the sword formations started to take shape, the formations linked up and connected with each other to form one enormous 8 Lights sword formation. The Nine Lights Sword formation that was formed by the joined efforts of the nine great palace masters could defeat the chief palace master of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace. Even though they were short of one light due to the death of the chief palace master, the formation's power was still formidable. The startling sword's power and the soul-suppressing darkness shrouded the entire Nine Lights heaven in the blink of an eye. In that instant, the mountains cried out, the galaxy trembled, and all those who had been floating in the air were instantly crushed to the ground. It was as if all of creation were but ants under the power of this heavenly might. Yunqi, prepare to die? Since they have already made their move, there was no holding back anymore. Yunqi stood still without moving an inch. His left hand pressed on Xianxia Ying'er's waist and gave her a strong push as his right hand grasped the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor sword. He casually made a slashing movement with his sword, and a pitch-black sword beam shot forth. The sword beam was only about 8 feet long, and it looked extremely ordinary. Compared to the 8-light sword formation, it looked like the fluorescence of a luminous moon, pitifully small and dim. The 8 great palace masters had completely disregarded this sword beam that could clearly be dispersed with a wave of an arm. Each of them had a malevolent gaze as the 8-light sword formation was suddenly activated and was headed straight toward Yunqi. It was also at this moment that the sword beam and the 8-light sword formation had collided with each other. Rip, that was the scariest ripping sound they had ever heard in their entire lives. That darkness sword beam seemed to be like a devil's blade from the abyss of hell, and pierced through the 8-light sword formation. The instant the sword beam disappeared, the huge sword formation collectively formed by the 8 great Nine Lights palace masters had been forcibly split into 2 halves. As if it were just mere cloth, contained within that seemingly ordinary sword beam was actually the elementary power of the eternal calamity of darkness. Wah! What? At that moment, the 8 great palace masters opened their eyes so wide that they could pop out, as if a frightening and yet preposterous nightmare had arrived. The energy of the sword formation had been wildly scattered, and they were hit with a powerful backlash. They crashed to the ground forcefully, their auras greatly disturbed. Meanwhile, Yunqi had released a second burst of power. In a split second, a golden flame filled the entire sky and threw the 8 of them into the inferno of the golden crow flame. A loud sound rang out, causing the surrounding air to vibrate. The 8 great palace masters were hurled to the ground, and golden fire started to burn them. Their horrible screams were so shrill that it was impossible to believe that they came from the 8 powerful divine sovereigns. The members of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace were dumbstruck. When news of the death of the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign at the Heavenly Handle Yun clan had arrived, they then knew of the name, Yunqi. From the attitude of Palace Master Hidden Universe, it was even more evident that he was an incomparably frightening figure. But they would never have imagined that he would be frightening to such an extent. The sword formation that the 8 great palace masters had formed, collectively, was enough to defeat the Nine Lights Heavenly Sovereign, but it had been casually dispersed by Yunqi with a single move, while the second move had severely injured them all. They were the 8 great palace masters, said to be the highest level of existence in the Thousand Desolation realm. But in front of Yunqi, they were actually this weak. Their strength, could they be in the Divine Master realm? AC, Tivate. Palace Master Hidden Universe seemed to have exhausted all his energy as he roared with all his might. At that moment, thousands of dark rays shot forth from different directions in Nine Lights Heaven, converging at a single point in midair. Immediately, an enormous darkness barrier spread out, completely enveloping the core of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace. At that moment, their auras had been completely isolated. The 8 great palace masters continued to struggle and scream in the midst of the golden crow flames. When they had extinguished the golden flames with much difficulty, they had already been covered with injuries from head to toe. They looked extremely haggard and battered, like they were half ghost and half human. But the moment they saw the barrier spread out and that Yunqi had been isolated outside of it, all of them breathed a long sigh of relief. Under those relaxed conditions, other than the pain of their bodies, what remained was fear and soreness. Divine Master? Gone was the firm strong will that Palace Master Hidden Universe had possessed initially. He knelt and slumped to the ground, seemingly unable to stand up. He finally understood why Hidden Universe and those palace masters who had previously gone to the Heavenly Handle Yun clan would be afraid of Yunqi to such an extent. He had only used 2 moves and they were already reduced to such a sorry state. This was absurd, just too absurd. Yunqi. Venerable Hidden Universe stood up, and even though there was an absolutely safe barrier separating them, he was still unable to completely suppress his nerves. He panted raggedly and said, "This is the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace's great protective formation. Once activated, no one is able to break it. The Nine Lights Heavenly Palace does not want to be your enemy. If you retreat now, we will call it even and our grudges will be settled. As for the death of the Chief Palace Master, we will not pursue it any further." However, Palace Master Hidden Universe gathered all his strength and spoke in a firm tone. "If you continue to force our hand, we will immediately use sound transmission and inform the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect that you are here. When that moment comes, you won't be able to leave even if you want to." "Ha!" Yunqi sneered and floated down, moving closer to the barrier. "Just based on this tortoise shell alone? Wu Geik, who's calling for me?" Note: Tortoise Shell and Wu Geik has the name pronunciation in Mandarin. Palace Master Hidden Universe said fiercely. "This protective barrier was created by our ancestors, and it is connected to the dark ley lines of 900 enormous mountains below us. Even if it was the Thousand Desolation Sect Master, even if the entire Thousand Desolation Divine Sect attacked together, they still wouldn't be able to crack it. If you don't believe me, you're welcome to try." Yunqi narrowed his eyes and slowly stretched out a single finger. A black light radiated from his finger and he gently poked the barrier. Ping! A gentle sound rang out as Yunqi's finger passed through the barrier directly. In that instant, millions of cracks started to radiate from the spot where Yunqi placed his finger, covering the entire dark barrier. The crack that had been made in the newly formed protective barrier quickly spread out and formed an enormous dark spider web, and in the next instant, it collapsed with a loud bang. Nine Lights Heaven shook violently, and under the dispersing darkness energy, the power that should have protected the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace was immediately transformed into a raging destructive power which mercilessly swallowed up and devoured many of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace disciples below it. Countless numbers of them died and miserable cries rent the air. It was not only the protective barrier that had instantly collapsed, the hearts and minds of everyone in the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace had collapsed as well. The instant Yunqi had used a single finger to collapse that barrier, Venerable Hidden Universe's eyes bulged out so violently that they looked like they were about to explode. After that, they turned white and dazed. He fervently hoped that all of this was merely a nightmare. The moment his eyes finally regained some focus, the first thing that they beheld was Yunqi's grim figure. He stood not 3 steps away from Venerable Hidden Universe, his emotionless eyes staring down at him. Surrounding them were the Nine Lights Palace Masters who were as ashen-faced as he was. Their eyes were trembling, and there were scorch marks all over their bodies. It was just that they did not look the least bit like Palace Masters at the moment. Instead, they practically looked like a bunch of crippled dogs whose convictions and souls had been torn apart, who did not possess any more will to fight. "You are very lucky that right now, I really don't want to waste my time killing a bunch of useless trash," Yunqi said in an icy voice. "All of you still have one last chance." Palace Master Hidden Universe's mouth opened and closed 3 times before he finally spoke in a weak and feeble voice. I will bring both of you there." After he said those words, the emotion that surged through his heart the most was, astonishingly enough, not humiliation. It was relief. As he brought Yunqi and Ying'er past the layers of barriers, Palace Master Hidden Universe finally arrived in front of the greatest forbidden ground in their entire sect, and opened up the barrier to the treasury, while also revealing the entire sect's accumulated resources and all of their greatest secrets to these 2 outsiders. "Very good." Yunqi swept his gaze over the riches in front of him. "You can get lost now." Palace Master Hidden Universe's entire body violently swayed, and he spoke through clenched teeth. "The treasury is filled with traps if I am not. Get lost." Palace Master Hidden Universe violently shuddered, and he did not dare speak another word. Instead, he timidly left. As one of the Palace Masters of the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace, a level 9 Divine Sovereign who looked down upon all creation, he had never imagined that he would actually be reduced to such a pathetic and terrified state one day. Before they had even entered the treasury, the aura that leaked out from inside had already caused Ying'er's golden eyes to glimmer. "It looks like the harvest this time should be pretty good. Given your unfathomable absorption ability, this should allow you to become a divine sovereign quickly." "Speaking of which," Ying'er said as she shot him a glance, Just based on its aura alone, it should have taken the power of a level 5 divine master to break that protective barrier just now. But in front of your darkness profound energy, it was actually so weak and pathetic. It was not Yun Qi's power that had broken the Nine Lights' heavenly palace's belief. It was his act of breaking their protective barrier with a single finger. The power that is derived from the elementary powers of the eternal calamity of darkness is actually so tyrannical. If you are able to master most of it in the future, I am afraid that all of those who exist in the darkness will have to bow at your feet. Including you, Yun Qi said in an icy voice before he stepped into the treasury. You shouldn't be so sure about that, Ying'er retorted in a low voice as she followed close behind him. 15 minutes went past, half an hour went past, time crawled along at a frighteningly slow pace. After 1 hour had gone by, Palace Master Hidden Universe finally could not wait any longer. He gathered up all of the courage in his body and raced straight toward the treasury. After that, he stood in the middle of the treasury and stared blankly at the completely empty space for a very long time. After an indeterminate amount of time had passed, he finally came back to his senses. He held up his sound transmission jade and made what was perhaps the most weak and helpless sound transmission of his entire life. Do not send a sound transmission to the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. From now on, no one in our entire sect is to mention the name Yun Qi or anything related to him. No, it's not that I'm afraid that he will come back to take revenge if he finds out. I just have this feeling that this person is simply far too terrifying, and it's possible that the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect will fall into his hands as well. In the mountains beneath Nine Lights Heaven, a palm-sized profound arc quietly nestled between two unremarkable mountain pebbles. A barely discernible frost barrier surrounded it, completely concealing its aura. Even if any profound beast occasionally passed by, it would not notice the existence of this profound arc. Within the world of the primordial profound arc, Yun Qi silently sat on the withered ground. A large amount of devil crystal and devil jade floated around him while releasing threads of pure and pristine energy. These threads of energy seemed to flow along invisible streams of air as they surged into Yun Qi's body. The aura within the primordial profound arc was low quality and turbid. It was an environment extremely unsuited to cultivation. Yet because it was an independent world, they did not need to worry about their auras being detected by other people, especially when they were attempting to complete a huge breakthrough. World-defying heaven manual, the law of nothingness, all things are nothing, all creation returns to the profound. Yun Qi was reading the incomplete world-defying heavenly manual. As for what the law of nothingness actually was, he was not able to use words to explain it. In fact, he had only vaguely touched upon its borders. He was even further away from being able to return all creation to the profound. Yet he was still able to directly convert the spiritual energy within profound crystals and profound jade into his own profound strength in a strange and mysterious manner. This was undoubtedly the most basic ability of the law of nothingness. In fact, it could not even be called basic. But in the eyes of the world, in the eyes of someone who had reached the summit of the profound way like Ying'er, this was truly an ability that defied the laws of this world. This was a bottleneck which countless profound practitioners could not break through despite a lifetime's worth of blood, sweat, and tears. Yet in 40 hours, in a short span of less than 2 days, Yun Qi had cleared this bottleneck in an exceptionally smooth fashion. In that instant, all the profound crystals surrounding Yun Qi soundlessly shattered, and all the air within 50 kilometers was expelled. Profound energy leaked from Yun Qi's body, but in the next instant, it swiftly started to flow back inside of him. Once everything had quieted down, the world of his profound veins had transformed into an even vaster starry sky. A profound vein world which contained the power of a divine sovereign. Yun Qi opened his eyes and black light suddenly flashed within them. He raised his hand and sensed the energy that flowed within his fingers. His perception of the world had once again changed, but the only thing in his heart was a deathly stillness, and these changes did not excite it in the least. Not even a year had passed since he had stepped into the northern divine region, but his cultivation had risen from the first level of the divine king realm to the first level of the divine sovereign realm. He had ascended an entire great realm of power. Ying'er had borne witness to this entire process. Yun Qi was calm, and she was also calm, even though this would have been an earth-shattering event for any profound practitioner on any plane of existence. It looks like the three divine regions have come yet another step closer to their doom. Ying'er walked over and looked at Yunqi before saying in an unfriendly tone, "Now, you can also help me get back to the Divine Master Realm without any worries, right?" Yunqi did not reply. Instead, he raised both hands and firelight shone from his arms as golden crow and phoenix flames ignited on each respective palm. When he brought both of his arms together, those flames swiftly merged into the immensely mighty crimson divine flames. Currently, the speed at which he was able to produce the crimson divine flames was several times faster than it had been back then. Also, since it was now created with the strength of a divine sovereign, its ability to incinerate things had grown many times more terrifying. As he held the crimson divine flames in his hands, Yunqi's gaze grew cold and focused. His palm began to slowly get enveloped in a dark glow. This was not any old darkness profound energy. This was a black light that had been merged with the eternal calamity of darkness. The black light came into contact with the crimson divine flames, and they instantly tried to snuff each other out. However, Ying'er realized that space and her vision had been abruptly and violently distorted for a single instant. The mutual repulsion and destruction stopped, and the power of darkness slowly flowed into the flames, slowly changing the color of the crimson flames, dyeing it an incredibly bizarre shade of ash. Ying'er was stunned senseless by what she had just seen. The flames started to violently sway, and she did not know if they were struggling to break free or were simply excited. The light cast by those flames turned Yunqi's hands and face gray. There was a brief pause before the gray-colored flames started to slowly turn black. It was also in this moment that the world within the primordial profound arc suddenly turned dim. As the shade of the flames gradually darkened, the light in the world around them also started to grow dimmer and dimmer. Fire would be accompanied by light, and this was not a principle that was limited to the profound way. In any world, this principle was the most basic, something that everyone knew. However, as her golden eyes were violently trembling, Ying'er was looking at a flame that was clearly devouring light. No, it was not only devouring light. Even the space around it was swiftly and violently receding. Before she knew it, the area surrounding the black flames had already formed into a vortex-like black hole. The black flames continued to change, and the last speck of ashen flames was finally transforming as well. At this time, Yunqi's body violently swayed and the black flames in his hands instantly collapsed. He spat out an arrow of blood that flew dozens of meters. He instantly collapsed to the ground after that, and he began gasping furiously for breath. Ying'er did not move. The astonishment in her eyes did not recede for quite a while. Who? Yunqi gulped down large mouthfuls of air, and more than 10 breaths passed before he finally managed to regulate his breathing. His finger slowly wiped away the blood that trickled from the corner of his mouth. The flesh there had split open, but he still wore a sinister smile on his face. What is that? Even Ying'er, who had long grown accustomed to Yunqi performing unimaginable and outrageous feats, had been deeply shocked by what she had just seen. I've just discovered another type of fire again. She could hear seldom-heard excitement in Yunqi's deep and low voice. Those black flames which he had formed just now were not merely the merger of darkness energy and his regular crimson flames. It was also a bizarre and fantastic merger of the heretic god divine power with the eternal calamity of darkness. The heretic god divine power could facilitate the merger of the phoenix and golden crow flames to form the crimson divine flames. It could go against the principles and laws of this world, merging the power of fire and ice into the ice flame, which should not exist in this world. All of this relied solely on the power of the heretic god, the power that wielded the ultimate mastery over the elements in the primal chaos realm, to the point where it could even bend the laws of reality. However, the eternal calamity of darkness, a power which stood on the same level as the heretic god divine power, was something that the heretic god divine power should not have been able to interfere with. Yet the fusion that had just taken place in that brief moment produced a power so gloomy and mysterious that it caused every hair on his body to stand on end. It had clearly been the fusion of the heretic god divine power with the eternal calamity of darkness. It was just that he did not know why he could actually merge these two creation god powers using this method. Moreover, it had not even been all that difficult to accomplish. It was just like how the heaven-smiting devil emperor could not understand why light and darkness profound energy could coexist within his body. He was not sure how long it would take for him to master this sort of fusion. But there was one thing he was sure of, and it was that these flames were definitely mightier than the crimson divine flames. After Yunqi regulated his breathing, he stood up and stared at Ying'er, his eyes gleaming with undisguised lust. "Within 12 hours, I will help you recover the power of a divine master, but before that—" His body blurred as he violently thrust out a hand. However, his hand only swished through the air as it swept through an afterimage that was swiftly fading away. As he stared at Ying'er, who had fled a fair distance away, Yunqi's eyes narrowed as he said, "Why? I'm not going to help you recover for nothing, you know." Ying'er gave a soft snort, her absolutely beautiful jade face turning icy and frigid. "You may violate me if you want, but you are not to destroy you." Bang! Before she had even finished speaking, Yunqi violently shoved her to the ground. An exceptionally loud ripping sound rang through the air. Her light blue outer robes were torn open in an incomparably savage manner, causing a pair of luscious white mounds that were beautiful enough to steal one's soul to spill out. "You don't have any right to refuse." Yunqi's tone brooked no question, and his eyes were filled with rapacious lust. Yunqi had become a divine sovereign, and his strength had undergone an unprecedented increase. The moment he opened the heretic god gates, Ying'er, who had not yet regained her powers as a divine master, truly did not have any power to resist him. The cold light of humiliation flashed in the depths of Ying'er's golden orbs, but it lasted for only an instant. She had gotten used to it. Yes, she had actually started to get used to it. "Yunqi," Ying'er lightly clenched her jade teeth. "Even if I am a toy, you had better not be too wanton and unbridled, otherwise—" "Otherwise what?" Yunqi said. Not only did his actions not grow the least bit gentler, he even pushed out one leg, forcing Ying'er's body into an incomparably shameless and incredibly humiliating position. "Yunqi, let me tell you, your greatest mistake was that you did not plant a slave imprint on me that day." Ying'er was unable to struggle free, but her voice was filled with bloodlust. "Once I've killed that old villain Fanchen with my own 2 hands, the next person I kill will be you. No, I don't regret it at all." Yunqi's body bent toward her as he said in a lascivious voice, "This is exactly what I love to see. The sight of you having no choice but to submit your body to me and my desires despite you clearly hating it so much. Despite your clear humiliation and desire to kill me. To me, there is no fate more suited to you than this one. Also," Yunqi wantonly traced a finger along her perfect body, a body as perfect as heavenly snow and divine jade. "You can't kill me. You won't ever be able to kill me." In the distance, Ying'er was hugging a black greatsword with one arm while holding a purple broadsword in the other. Her hands alternated with great dexterity, bringing the swords to her mouth without pause. She chomped down on them with great gusto, causing cracking sounds to ring through the air and causing the 2 swords to be riddled with tooth marks. They started quarreling again, Om Nom Nom. Ying'er's cheeks puffed up as she gobbled down her food and mumbled to herself in a muffled voice. She had long since gotten used to such a scene. "Ying'er, it's about time for us to return." Ling subtly shifted her body as she tried to block their view. But I haven't finished eating yet." Ying'er deliberately tried to speed up her eating. "Furthermore, I want to bring you to the place where Master found Ying'er all those years ago." "Amen, want to see?" Ying'er gave a gentle nod of her head. She could already say those 3 words in a rather smooth and fluent manner, and her colorful eyes flashed with the strange light of anticipation. "Then how about we go over and see it now?" "Amen." Both girls held hands as they flew towards the south, and it was only then that Ling finally breathed a silent sigh of relief. She furtively turned her head backwards to look at Yunqi and Ying'er. She was unable to foresee just what sort of relationship would evolve between the 2 of them in the distant and not-so-distant future. The Thousand Desolation Divine Sect was located in the south of the Thousand Desolation realm. They were the Realm King sect that controlled everything in the Thousand Desolation realm. Even though they had only reigned for 10,000 years, they had the Burning Moon King realm backing them up. As such, their growth was extremely swift, and their position in the Thousand Desolation realm had become unshakable a long time ago. Even though they've only existed for a measly 10,000 years, they are still the Realm King sect of an upper star realm. They also have a king realm backing them up, so how are you going to destroy them? Ying'er was wearing a white robe embroidered with butterfly patterns. The pearls embedded into her skirt shone with a gorgeous brilliance as it swayed. She really did not like these sorts of plain and spotless colors, but practically all of the robes that she did like had been ripped to shreds by Yun-Chi. "Before you decide to show off next time, please use your brains first," Ying'er said in a huffy voice. "I've seen part of Yun Shang's memories," Yun-Chi said. "The Thousand Desolation Divine Sect forcefully replaced the heavenly Handle Yun clan back then, and even though they are the Realm King sect of an upper star realm, their foundation and overall strength is far weaker than average. Even now, they are still weaker than the heavenly Handle Yun clan at their peak. The Thousand Desolation Sect Master used to be one of the divine envoys from the Burning Moon King realm. Even though he is a divine master, he has been stuck at the first level of the divine master realm for more than 10,000 years, so that's probably the limit of his power." Yun-Chi's gaze grew sharp and focused. "To our current selves, there is nothing much to fear. Of course, we need not be afraid of a mere Thousand Desolation Sect Master, but his sect is still a great Realm King sect." Ying'er glared at Yun-Chi. "What's more, besides this, you know nothing about the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. I won't waste too much time investigating a mere Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. They aren't worthy of that sort of effort." Yun-Chi's eyes were cold and cruelly arrogant. "As long as I know myself, that will be enough." "Heh," Ying'er scoffed coldly. "Furthermore, I've never said that I would directly clash with the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect." At this moment, Yun-Chi's feet ground to a halt, and he narrowed his eyes and cast his gaze forward. He observed two figures swiftly sweep by. Even though they were very far away, the voices of these two people rang in Yun-Chi's and Ying'er's ears with crystal clarity. "Seventh brother, I still don't understand something. Our clan only received 2 invitations to a grand affair like the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's 6,000th birthday. Seventh brother's innate talent is exemplary, so it is only natural that you were picked. But why did father want me to accompany you here? It is only reasonable that father himself would come." It was a man and a woman, and they looked rather young. Yun-Chi and Ying'er could also surmise that they were brother and sister from their conversation. "Since we've already come all this way, there's no harm in telling you," the man said with a bland laugh. "Even though the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's innate talent is exemplary, he is extremely lustful, and he has countless concubines. Furthermore, over the last few years, he would often pick his concubines from the guests who came to attend his birthday celebration. And those big and noble sects would often present beauties to him as a present. Do you understand now?" The woman's body jerked to a halt in midair, a terrified expression on her face. "So father wants to give me. What are you afraid of?" the man replied. "This is the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince we are talking about, the one who is very likely to become the Thousand Desolation Realm's Realm King in the future. If you really do manage to catch his eye, even if you are only a minor concubine, you will still be able to reach the heavens in a single step. Do you understand?" As he looked at the woman's appearance, his brow wrinkled slightly and he said, "Furthermore, even though your beauty is famed in the eastern region, we don't even know if you'll be able to catch his eye in the first place. After we've joined the birthday feast, you need to think of a way to capture his attention." A series of expressions crossed the woman's face. "Quor," the man said in a sincere and earnest voice, "don't ever think that this is unfair to you. Think long and hard about what sort of existence the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince is. In fact, today might very well be the most important day in deciding your future and the future of our family." The woman nodded her head. I understand." Just as she said those words, both of them suddenly heard a soft ringing in their ears. Their vision went black at the same time and they were no longer conscious. Yun-Chi's figure appeared. As he stretched out his hand, he released his profound handle and directly pierced the man's soul. It flew out of the man's body an instant later and invaded the woman's soul. Bang! The spatial ring on the man's hand was shattered by Yun-Chi. Yun-Chi used a finger to retrieve an invitation letter amidst the distorted and collapsing space. "My name is Bai Chi, and your name is Bai Quor." By the time he turned around, Yun-Chi's face had already transformed into the face of the unconscious man. Even his voice sounded exactly the same. Ying'er let out a soft snort, and that could be taken as an answer. Yun-Chi stripped the man of his outerwear and put it on. After that, his gaze alighted on the unconscious woman, and he swallowed the words that he was about to speak, given Kyanai's personality. She definitely would never be able to accept wearing robes that another woman had just worn. "Limit your profound energy to the divine spirit realm." Yun-Chi paused before a moment before suddenly saying, "Take off your mask." Ying'er's beautiful eyes slanted to the side as a dangerous smirk played along her pink and lustrous lips. "Are you sure? Take it off?" Yunqi repeated himself. Ying'er's hands softly brushed across her face as it took off the black mask that covered her face. The moment her true features were revealed to the world, all the light in the world abruptly dimmed. She did not need to affect any sort of expression. Her face did not need to be prettied up or decorated with any accessories. The moment her face was revealed to the world discovered what unmatchable heavenly beauty was. "Let's go." Yunqi took to the skies, but Ying'er moved a bit slower. She casually pointed a finger behind her, causing the unlucky siblings to be devoured by the darkness. Not even a single trace of them remained. Stretching more than 1,500 kilometers wide, Thousand Desolation Divine Mountain was the place the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect was located. Even though its scale and size were far inferior the Divine Ice Phoenix Sect's Ice Phoenix Realm, as the Thousand Desolation Realm's King Sect, no one dared to question its might. During this period, a huge incident had occurred within the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. Their chief enforcer, Devotee Empty Mind, went to the Heavenly Handle Yun clan to take their sacred Yun Ancient Pellet and Cloud Heaven Cauldron as gifts for the Crown Prince's 6,000th birthday. With the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace and the Desolate Heaven Dragon Clan as the vanguard, he tried to force the Heavenly Handle Yun clan to hand them over. Yet he had died miserably at the hands of an unknown person called Yunqi. When this incident was reported to them, it violently shook the entire sect, and the Thousand Desolation Divine Master flew into a great rage. As a Realm King sect that had the support of the Burning Moon Divine Realm, no one had ever dared to go against their Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. Besides, Venerable Empty Mind was their chief enforcer. At this moment, the Crown Prince's 6,000th birthday was approaching, and all of the sects in the Thousand Desolation Realm had come to congratulate him. So the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect had not taken action yet. The day after the Crown Prince's birthday was the deadline given to the Heavenly Handle Yun clan. At that time, they would undoubtedly get to the bottom of things. The vast space in front of the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect's main entrance was completely silent. Today was the Crown Prince's 6,000th birthday, so their guests were all big shots. But the moment they arrived, they restrained their auras and lowered their bodies. In fact, they even tried to make their footsteps and breathing as light as possible. Their sole fear was that they would commit even the slightest breach of etiquette. But at this moment, an incident occurred. Bang! Yunqi descended from the sky and he landed with quite a bit of force, causing the ground to faintly vibrate. The brows of the disciple in charge of receiving the guests sank. He wore an expression of fury on his face as he took a step forward and said, "Where are you from? Today is the Crown Prince's birthday, so you either quickly take out an invitation card or you get lost. The Eastern Regions by Clan." Yunqi took out the invitation letter. The disciple took it as his brows knit together. Just as he was about to speak, Ying'er slowly floated to the ground and landed behind Yunqi. The disciple's mouth dropped open and froze in place. His entire body went rigid as well. It was as if everything in front of him had abruptly disappeared. Right now, the only thing his eyes were seeing, the only thing that existed in his heart and soul, was a jade face that was as ethereal and beautiful as a dream. No, it was even more ethereal and beautiful than a dream. It transcended all reality, transcended all fantasy. One breath passed, 2 breaths passed, 3 breaths passed, but he was still in a stupor. He stared fixedly at Ying'er. It was as if his soul had been yanked from his body as he continued to mumble incoherently. Yunqi retrieved the invitation card from the disciple with a swipe of his fingers before saying, "Let's go." Yunqi and Ying'er passed through the main gate as they stepped into the heart of the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. As for the disciple in front of the main entrance, it was only after a long time had passed that he finally came to his senses. However, he still had a disoriented look in his eyes, as if he had lost his soul and sank into a dream that he never wanted to wake up from. After they entered the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect, they felt a formless pressure assault them. The atmosphere in this place was clearly more solemn when compared to the atmosphere found in other normal sects. With a glance, Yunqi spied many sect members who were dressed in robes of different colors. They were keeping strict watch over the areas they were stationed in. They had a menacing look in their eyes, and they did not move a single inch. "If you wanted to infiltrate this place, wouldn't it have been better to turn yourself invisible?" Ying'er asked. She knew exactly what would happen if she revealed her face in public. Back then, when she was still unused to wearing a mask, all the men who saw her, from the lowest commoner to the god emperors themselves, would start behaving pathetically. It was also during this process that her contempt and disgust for men had slowly been formed. Do you really think I am going to destroy this Thousand Desolation Divine Sect just for the sake of Yun Shang? Yunqi said in a cold voice. There's also resources to plunder, right? Ying'er gave a small pout. But I have to wonder, which one of these two reasons is the convenient one? Yunqi was originally at the first level of the Divine King Realm. The biggest reason why Yunqi could break through to the first level of the Divine Sovereign Realm in less than a year was the last vestiges of divine power that the Ice Phoenix had granted him. If it had been based on pure cultivation alone, he did not know how many years it would have taken. But now, Yunqi had become a divine sovereign. Now that he had reached this level, even if his innate talent was unrivaled, every single breakthrough would require an immense amount of effort and time. Even if he only needed a decade, a shockingly low amount of time, to break through to the next level, Yunqi, whose heart was filled with hatred, would definitely not be content to wait out even this short period. He had vaguely grasped a part of the law of nothingness, allowing him to directly convert the profound spiritual energy contained within profound crystals into part of his cultivation. This was undoubtedly a heaven-defying ability. As long as he had enough profound crystals, the rate of his growth would far exceed that of any normal cultivation. Furthermore, there were no risks or difficulties that arose from using this method. But the catch was that he needed to have enough profound crystals in the first place. He had already exhausted almost 30% of the profound crystals, and profound jade they had plundered from the Nine Lights' heavenly palace just to break through to the Divine Sovereign Realm. Every increase in level within the Divine Sovereign Realm would require many times more profound crystals than it had in the Divine King Realm, moreover. Because of the unique nature of his profound veins, it was much more difficult for him to break through compared to normal profound practitioners. As a result, other than helping Ying'er merge with the devil blood and cultivating the eternal calamity of darkness, the one thing that he needed to do was to use every means possible to acquire an enormous amount of resources. Even though the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect did not have much history or legacy, they were still the Realm King sect of an upper star realm. If they could empty out their coffers, this would undoubtedly be a huge boon for Yunqi. However, this task was so difficult that it was practically akin to destroying the entire Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. There is an extremely large, offensive, profound formation beneath us. I can sense that there are over 3,000 formation patterns, Yunqi suddenly said. I probably won't die if it is activated, but you definitely will. As his mastery over the eternal calamity of darkness grew, his perception of darkness' profound energy had become incredibly sensitive. A huge power would always have an ace up their sleeve. The huge, offensive, profound formation hidden beneath them was probably the very last and most terrifying defensive measure. Once it was activated, the results would be catastrophic. But on the other hand, if they were able to twist up and destroy the formation patterns of this huge, profound formation, and forcefully channel the power that lay within it. Then I must give you my thanks, Ying'er said with a cold and disdainful snort. What are you planning to have me do? You don't need to do anything, Yunqi said. Just obediently stand beside me and other people will naturally deliver us the opportunity we need. Furthermore, it will be an opportunity that could not be any more perfect. What if it fails? Then we'll simply force the issue. Yunqi did not look the least bit apprehensive. He suddenly reached out and pinched Ying'er's exquisite chin between his fingers. He stared at her face before saying, Furthermore, I don't think it will fail. The greater the beauty, the crazier men will react. There is beauty that will cause men to take a sidelong glance. There is beauty that will captivate a man's heart. There is beauty which will provoke lust in a man. There is beauty that will cause men to lose all rationality. And there is even beauty that will cause a man to go completely insane. Which category of beauty do you think you belong in? A slapping sound rang in the air as Ying'er violently batted away Yunqi's hand. She gave a cold chuckle as she said, As a tool, I am really useful, huh? However, you had better remember one thing. Ying'er's golden eyes narrowed, her gaze so cold it pierced one's heart. If anyone goes too crazy, no matter who it is, and dares to even touch the corner of my robes, I definitely won't hold back. I'll rip him to shreds then and there. To hell with your plans. Do you understand? Yunqi looked at her before he started chuckling, Right now, I really do like that man-hating attitude of yours, Ying'er. Because Yun-Chi had deliberately arrived late, the Crown Prince's birthday feast was already underway when they arrived at the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince Hall. As they stood in front of the doors to the hall, both Yun-Chi and Ying'er's brows twitched at the same time. There were many divine sovereign auras in the hall, and this included 4 peak divine sovereigns. However, there was no aura that belonged to the divine master realm. The Thousand Desolation Sect Master was not around. The Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's 6,000th birthday banquet was undoubtedly a momentous occasion that shook the entire Thousand Desolation realm. As the Thousand Desolation Sect Master, the father of the Crown Prince, he was the person who really should have been present, and it was very likely that he was playing host as well. But after they checked one more time, they confirmed that there was no aura belonging to the Divine Master realm within the hall. Even though they did not know the reason for this, it did not seem like such a bad thing at this moment. The Eastern Regions by clan has arrived. It was the 6,000th birthday of the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince, the future Thousand Desolation Realm King. Thus, many people would come from all over the realm bearing precious gifts to commemorate this event, and very few people would dare to arrive late. Furthermore, it was clear that the Eastern Regions by clan did not have the qualifications to be late either. Before Yun-Chi even stepped inside the hall, an undisguised cold snort rang through the air. The Bai clan has been growing weaker over the last few years, and it's said that they will soon be considered second-rate in the Eastern region. But their arrogance, on the other hand, is growing larger and larger. To think that they would dare to be late for such a grand event as the 6,000th birthday of His Highness the Crown Prince. How preposterous! The one who had spoken out was a middle-aged man sitting at the side. He was not familiar with the Bai clan, and he did not have any grudges against them. But his words were an attempt to curry favor with the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince. Offending the tiny Bai clan to garner the attention of the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince, there was nothing to lose and everything to gain by doing such a thing. So why would he not do it? Immediately after he finished speaking, people started to agree with him. Indeed, this is simply outrageous. We were so excited for this event that we rushed over several days early. For the Bai clan to even obtain an invitation is already a huge blessing for them, yet they actually dared to arrive late. They are truly brazen. The Thousand Desolation Crown Prince wore a bland smile on his face as he sat in the main seat of the Great Hall. He did not respond to any of the admonishments being delivered to the Bai clan, and he casually swept his eyes towards the entrance of the hall. But it was in that moment that his brain seemed to have been violently struck by something. He felt as if his soul had suddenly been seized by a demon, as his eyes and every other part of his body stiffened. The rebukes that had been ringing through the hall also abruptly died down at this moment. The earlier ruckus had transformed into a nearly frightening silence. Yun-Chi swaggered into the hall, but no one bothered to look at him. In fact, they might not even have noticed him, because all of the brilliance in the world, all of the brilliance they beheld in their eyes, was all focused on the woman that followed behind him. Back when Yun-Chi had first seen Ying'er's face, the very first thought that came to mind when he regained his senses was that it was terrifying. Her existence could obliterate all the light and color that a person had seen in their entire life, could completely destroy all of their will and rationality. This was especially true for those golden eyes of hers. Even if they did not contain any emotion, they were still like a golden abyss that could drive a person insane. A golden abyss that people would willingly fall into, even if they had to die thousands of times. Ying'er had seen this scene play out more times than she could count. Even god-emperors would reveal a completely stunned expression on their faces in front of her. By the time she was a teenager, she had already started to regard all of the men in the world as lowly and inferior beings. However, it was such a pity that someone like her would end up becoming a man's toy. This was not a thought that was limited to her alone. Nobody from the 3 divine regions would be able to imagine that the unattainable and unapproachable Brahma monarch goddess, whom they did not even dare to profane with a glance, would meet with such a fate. Yun-Chi stood in the middle of the hall and shouted, "The Eastern Region Bai Clan's Bai Chi congratulates the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince on his 6,000th birthday. Because we met with some unforeseen circumstances on our way here, we arrived late. We request that the Crown Prince punish us." That thunderous voice roused everyone from their daydreams, and people who had forgotten to breathe remembered that they still had to do so, but their breathing had now grown rougher. Everyone in the hall, from the youths who had not even reached 60 years of age to the hegemons who had already lived for longer than 10,000 years, had reacted in the exact same way. A long time had passed since Yun-Chi had finished speaking, but no one had responded to him yet. But it was at this moment that the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince stood up from the main seat. His actions were incredibly slow and stiff, and his eyes staring blankly in front of him. It was as if he was a wooden puppet whose strings were being tugged. He was no ordinary profound practitioner. He was the Crown Prince of the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect, and he had never revealed such a stupefied expression in his entire life. Ahem! A light cough suddenly rang in his ears. But this light cough was able to directly shake his soul and mind, causing the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince to regain some clarity and focus. This old man was Devotee Divine Sunflower, the Vice Sect Master of the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect, the number 2 person in the sect, a divine sovereign who stood at the very pinnacle of his realm. Oh, he. The Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's face screwed up for a moment, but no matter how much he tried, he could not display his usual calm and imposing demeanor. So that it's Bai Clan's brat. Devotee Divine Sunflower sent him a sound transmission. He once again used sound to clear up the Crown Prince's soul. The pathetic and disgraceful appearance of the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince caused his brow to greatly furrow, but he did not heave a sigh of disappointment, because even he did not dare to glance at Ying'er a second time. Furthermore, before this event, he had regarded women as deadly creatures since long ago, and he had not been near one for a full 10,000 years. Ah, so it's the Bai Clan's the Bai Clan's young master. After Devotee Divine Sunflower had used his voice to cleanse the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's soul twice, he had finally managed to regain some of his rationality. It was also at this moment that he finally realized that he had stood up from his seat. He, the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince, had stood up to welcome the people from the Bai clan. This scene was truly. "Present your gifts and take your seats," Devotee Divine Sunflower said. About that." Yun-Chi did not move forward to present any gifts, and there was a clear look of discomfort on his face. "What's the matter? Could it be that you were robbed of your gift on the way here?" Devotee Divine Sunflower said with a cold snort. But when he spoke, he still dipped his head and closed his eyes. It was clear that he did not dare take a single glance at Ying'er. No, Yun-Chi hurriedly said. "The fact that our Bai clan received the invitation to His Highness the Crown Prince's 6,000th birthday celebration is our clan's great fortune, so how could we dare come empty-handed? However, we have instructions from our clansmen to only present this gift to His Highness the Crown Prince in private." As he spoke, he seemed to inadvertently shoot an apprehensive glance toward Ying'er. Even though it was just a slight movement, how could anyone present not understand what it meant? The Thousand Desolation Crown Prince bounced right back off his seat just as he had sat down again. His lips had actually started to violently shudder as he said, Oh, so it is like that. Aha, ha ha ha. The fact that the Bai clan could even make it today already shows that they have put in all of their efforts. The gift itself actually isn't too important. That's right, I don't know how I should address this lady. Is she also a member of your Bai clan? He was acutely aware that his voice was distorted and trembling, and he possessed enough self-awareness to realize that he was currently behaving in an utterly disgraceful manner, but he could not control himself. In fact, he barely even cared about it. His heart was burning with scorching heat, agitation, and excitement. He was agitated to the point of distraction, so excited that he was about to go insane. This display was far more pathetic than even Yun-Chi had imagined. After all, the person beside him was the Brahma monarch goddess. "Highness, this girl's surname is Yun and her first name is Xianxia. She's a commoner my clan took in a month ago. Xianxia, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and greet His Highness." He had originally wanted Ying'er to borrow Bai Quor's name, but she refused to disguise herself. There were also too many hidden dangers and risks that came with assuming her identity, so he ended up tossing the idea aside. HMPH. Ying'er turned her jade face aside as she let out a cold snort filled with disdain. Yun-Chi hurriedly said, "We've only recently taken this girl into our household, so we didn't have sufficient time to educate her. As a result, she lacks good breeding and she does not understand proper etiquette. She also constantly disobeys orders. I hope your highness will not blame her." Ying'er. Number to display such arrogance in front of the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince. and a whole host of hegemons in the heart of the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect, was practically no different from courting death. However, the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince immediately raised a hand and said anxiously, "It's fine, it's fine. Hurry, please take a seat of honor. A seat of honor." He had said seat of honor instead of be seated, and the difference between these two sets of words was like the gulf between heaven and earth. The Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's face was colored an extremely abnormal shade of red. His eyes shone constantly, and when he spoke, both his voice and his hands would tremble. If his appearance right now was a common spectacle, then no one would dare to believe that he was actually the young master of an Upper Star Realm King sect. Xianxia and Ying'er took their seats, and they really were in seats of honor. After they had just taken their seats, the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's face suddenly darkened and he yelled, "Wait-tating, get lost." His low roar stunned the entire crowd into silence. A middle-aged man shakily rose to his feet from one of the seats near the end of the hall. He spoke in a terrified voice. How did this humble one anger your highness?" This person was precisely the one who had jumped at the opportunity to rebuke the Bai clan just now. HMPH. The Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's expression grew even colder as his manner swelled to its most imperious and intimidating. "The Bai clan has always treated my Thousand Desolation Divine Sect with the utmost sincerity. Even though they arrived late today, it was definitely not intentional. Furthermore, it is certainly not the prerogative of your flashing Thunder Valley to slander them with your filthy words. Leave this place immediately." Wei-tating's complexion went deathly white, and everyone who had echoed his sentiments just now screwed their mouths shut in fear. Wei-tating immediately knelt to the ground, his entire body trembling. Your Highness, this humble one only got angry on behalf of your Highness, that's why. Get out." The Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's eyes narrowed. "Or could it be that you want me to personally throw you out?" Wei-tating shuddered violently and his face was completely drained of blood. He backpedaled in panic as he said, "Please calm down, your Highness. Get lost. I will get lost right now." Wei-tating practically stumbled over himself as he fled the scene. It was very likely that he would be plagued by nightmares over this event for a very long time to come. The Thousand Desolation Crown Prince turned around and was just about to speak when his eyes made contact with Ying'er. After that, his vision violently blurred once more, and it took an incredible amount of effort for him to tear his eyes away from her. It was only then that he managed to speak. "There will always be blind fools in this world. I hope that he did not spoil your mood. Today, please feel free to drink and make merry to your heart's content." The birthday feast continued, but the atmosphere had become odd. Every single one of the people invited to this birthday feast was someone important, and they were not just any old, important people. Everyone who had reached their level had seen their fill of glorious beauties, and their pursuit of the profound way had long since transcended such earthly desires. However, Ying'er's arrival had cast a light that was far too dazzling over this birthday feast. It was so dazzling that it nearly destroyed their concept of light itself. There were many exceptionally beautiful women at this feast, and they had all been brought along by these hegemons in hopes of catching the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's eye. Every woman who was brought to this feast was a famous beauty. However, their brilliance, which normally drew all attention to them and caused waves wherever they went, had been completely extinguished the moment Ying'er stepped into the hall. These women, who had originally been showing off their beauty, were now hanging their heads deeply. They did not dare to look up, speak, or even glance in Ying'er's direction. Their hearts filled with jealousy and inferiority like they had never felt before. This was supposed to be the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's 6,000th birthday celebration, but the star of the show had completely changed. Regardless of whether it was their wandering eyes or their hearts, all of it was focused on Ying'er. Furthermore, it seemed like the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince himself was completely ignorant of what was happening, because he himself was the most distracted person in the hall. He had lived for 6,000 years, and he held an exalted status. What kind of woman hadn't he seen before? The amount of concubines in his harem had long since surpassed the 10,000 mark, and he thought that his gigantic harem already contained all of the beauty this world had to offer. But today, he suddenly realized that the women in his harem were actually so ordinary. No, they were downright homely at this point. When he thought about how this woman was a gift that the Bai clan was giving to him, his heart started to thump wildly in his chest. Not only was he not able to calm it down, it actually started beating faster and faster, and he felt as if all the blood in his body boiled along with it. This caused his face and his skin to turn a startling shade of red. At this moment, he suddenly jumped to his feet and spoke to Xianxia. "Brother Bai, I heard that there has been some upheaval in the eastern regions lately. I just so happen to have a matter I want to discuss with your Bai clan regarding the eastern region. Shall we take it somewhere private?" The great hall instantly fell into a hush, and devotee Divine Sunflower secretly sighed. However, he did not say anything. In fact, he was not the least bit surprised. To think that there existed a woman who was actually this perfect. Even the beauty of the Devil Queen Kai Wao, who was said to be able to steal one's soul with a glance and bring disaster to the world with a smile, would only be on par with this woman's. Almost everyone present bowed their heads as various expressions crossed their faces. They all knew what the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's intentions were, but the excuse he was using was simply far too shoddy. However, this girl named Ying did indeed have the qualifications. Xianxia gave a cold snort in his heart. He had originally thought that this Thousand Desolation Crown Prince would be able to hold out until the end of the birthday feast. He had thought that he would at least comport himself with the barest amount of restraint and dignity that was expected from the Crown Prince of a realm king. However, not even 100 breaths had passed since he and Ying'er had stepped into the hall. Xianxia rose to his feet and said cheerily, "Of course, we will obey your highness every command. Ying, follow along as well." The Thousand Desolation Crown Prince led the way, abandoning his own 6,000th birthday celebration. He led Xianxia and Ying'er into the inner hall under everyone's staring eyes, and the moment the doors to the inner hall were shut, the great hall immediately burst out into a cacophony of noise as discussions sprang up all over the place. The Thousand Desolation Crown Prince shut the doors to the inner hall tightly. After that, a barrier formed on its own to isolate all sound and aura. This sort of thing certainly could not be disturbed or interrupted by anyone. He turned around and tried to look imposing, but they could see that his lips and fingers were trembling uncontrollably. "Brother Bai." He looked at Xianxia, but the corners of his eyes kept twitching as his gaze seemed to be drawn toward Ying'er by an invisible and inexorable force. "So what exactly is the present that you've prepared for me?" Even he could hear the trembling in his voice, and he was well aware of how pathetic he looked right now. In fact, he was sure that he had thrown away all the dignity he had accumulated in this life. But that was not important. None of it was important. He even had this incomparably terrifying but exciting thought at this moment. If he could have this woman, even if he were to be ripped to bits after one night with her, he would not hesitate to choose that very option. However, it was a pity that he was completely unaware of the identity of the woman who stood in front of him. This was a woman who had not allowed the strongest god-emperor of Southern Divine Region to lay a single finger on her, despite his maniacal pursuit of her, a chase that had lasted for centuries. Xianxia silently scanned their surroundings with his spiritual perception. This was indeed worthy of being called the inner hall of the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. It nearly perfectly isolated their auras. He gave a faint smile before stepping aside and saying, "If your highness wants to know what the gift is, all your highness needs to do is to come a little closer and take a look." The Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's throat made a huge gulping sound, and his vision violently swayed. He could not be bothered with words anymore as he took a big step forward, but the moment his foot hit the ground, he suddenly saw a burning scarlet butterfly flit by him. After that he saw 2, 3, 100, 1,000. The flaming butterflies danced in the air, and it looked as beautiful as an illusion. They flew all over the place, landing on his eyes, flying into his pupils, turning his whole world into a sea of pure fire. Thunk, the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince collapsed forward, his eyes half closed, a dazed expression on his face. He looked completely intoxicated, but he did not move a single muscle. The red butterfly soul domain. Given the powerful divine soul possessed by a divine sovereign, it was extremely difficult for the red butterfly soul domain to forcefully burn up their souls. However, because of the extremely pathetic state of his soul just now, sealing his soul inside the world of flaming butterflies had been as easy as taking candy from a baby. From beginning to end, Ying'er had not even spared the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince a single glance, because to her, she would practically be like soiling her own eyes. To think that trash like this could actually be the Crown Prince of a realm king. What a joke. However, no simple person could become the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince, but she naturally would not lay any of the blame on herself. Furthermore, if she had to compare, she would rather be Yun-Chi's toy than let trash like this touch even the corner of her robes. Yun-Chi extended a finger and shot out his profound handle, sending it flying into the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's soul. After that, his expression changed slightly. Ying'er seemed to sense something, causing her eyebrows to arch slightly. No wonder the Thousand Desolation Sect master wasn't present. Yun-Chi's voice had turned low and deep. He left this place an hour ago to personally welcome someone. Who? Ying'er's expression had also grown more serious. A person who could make the Thousand Desolation Sect master go out and greet them was definitely no ordinary person. It's someone from the Burning Moon King realm, Yun-Chi said. A person that we absolutely cannot deal with right now. Let's go, Ying'er said in an incredibly decisive manner. No, Yun-Chi's gaze had turned dark. Since we're already here, how can we return empty-handed? Furthermore, I already promised the heavenly handle Yun clan and Yun Shang that I would definitely turn this place upside down. A fiery light flashed through his eyes, and the red butterfly soul domain instantly erupted, completely incinerating the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's soul, turning him into a living vegetable. Yun-Chi dressed himself in the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's outer garments with a swish of his arm, and in the blink of an eye, his face and the length of his hair were exactly the same as the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince. Ying'er stared at Yun-Chi before she suddenly blurted out. No wonder the three divine regions could not even catch your shadow when they were hunting for you with full force. The Na Yuan stone, the ability to turn invisible and nearly perfect disguise skills which do not rely on profound energy. It's really a waste that you didn't become a thief. Yun-Chi threw the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's body into the primordial profound arc with just a single thought. The darkness aura that radiated from his body matched the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's aura perfectly. He did not even have to put in any effort. After that, he sent profound energy surging through his body, causing his face to go completely red. Let's go! Yun-Chi started walking forward. Without waiting for Ying'er's response, he firmly wrapped an arm around her waist and pushed open the great doors to the inner hall. Ha-ha-ha! The face of the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince was ruddy, and he walked out with his arm wrapped around Ying'er's waist. He even let out an unbridled and wanton laugh that was not dignified in the least. Everyone, just now I suddenly realized that I had something important to do, so I'll need to retire to my bedchambers for a while. Please continue to drink and make merry. There's no need to stand on ceremony. Great Elder, I'll have to trouble you to take care of the guests here. I'll be back soon. He did not wait for anyone's response. The moment he finished speaking, he picked up Ying'er and shot into the air. In the blink of an eye, he had already flown far away, and he had basically abandoned his 6,000th birthday celebration. Bang! Devotee Divine Sunflower shattered a table with his palm. This is truly outrageous. But we can't really blame the young master this time, the old man beside him said. That sort of woman, Hugh. He thought about it for a good long time, but he could not find any words that he could use to describe her. The only thing he could do was let out a long breath. Yun-Chi and Ying'er arrived at the Crown Prince's bedchambers unimpeded. After that, they entered a secret room that was layered with seals. Yun-Chi grabbed the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's body from the primordial profound arc and pressed his hand against the seals, squeezing out a drop of blood. Clang, with a soft ringing sound and a flash of profound light, an invisible barrier was opened, and a secret passage that led to an unknown location appeared. I hope that this harvest won't disappoint me too badly. Yun-Chi's lips slowly curled up into a smile. Because this was a secret passage that could only be opened up by using fresh blood which belonged to the sect master's bloodline. A passage that led straight to the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect's most important treasury. This was the treasury of a realm king sect, so one could well imagine just how well protected it was. Treasuries were the most important warehouse for a sect's resources, but they were also a place where one could hide during an emergency or unforeseen accident. As a result, one entrance to the treasury was located in the Crown Prince's bedchambers. The Thousand Desolation Divine Sect's treasury was not being guarded by anyone, but it was sealed away behind 6 different barriers. Every barrier could only be opened by using the blood of someone directly related to the sect master, and it needed to be fresh blood at that. Moreover, The very last grand protective formation required them to step on 99 different formation points in the correct order. If they made a single misstep, it would activate the profound formation and alert the entire sect. However, it was a pity that these defenses that were so tight that they were practically impregnable to most other people, were actually completely insignificant to Yun-Chi. He used the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince's blood whenever he needed to, and he followed the Crown Prince's memories to easily navigate his way through the profound formation and open the treasury's large doors. An extremely dense spiritual energy that was mixed with a similarly dense darkness assaulted them. The treasury was huge. It was dozens of kilometers wide, and it stored countless spirit stones, profound crystals, precious jade, medicine, spirit pellets, profound artifacts, materials, weapons, profound arts, and other things as well. This is a Realm King's sect after all. It is quite a bit grander than the one in the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace, Ying'er said. However, when compared to the resources stockpiled by the Brahma Monarch God realm, it did not even bear mentioning. All of the resources in their line of sight were covered by darkness barriers that looked like they had existed for a very long time. These darkness barriers were not strong, so it would not take much effort to break them open. But if any of them were broken, the darkness aura they would release would immediately alert a relatively large area around the treasury. Furthermore, Yun-Chi could clearly sense that there was an extremely hard-to-detect soul imprint on these barriers. The moment these barriers were touched, the owner of these soul imprints would immediately sense it, and that person was most likely the Thousand Desolation Sect master. Unfortunately for them, all of these things were mere decorations in front of Yun-Chi. With the power of the eternal calamity of darkness, controlling these darkness barriers could not be any simpler. He stepped forward and swept a hand out. Then, one of the darkness barriers in front of him started to slowly fade away along with the soul imprint etched on it. It did not make a single sound or release any aura. After that, he directly swept the profound crystals that had lain underneath that barrier into the sky poison pearl. These darkness barriers, which were originally the perfect fail-safe, were now being popped like bubbles by Yun-Chi, and all of the resources the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect had harvested from the Thousand Desolation realm over all these years were swiftly being poured into the sky poison pearl. At this time, after yet another barrier had been popped, a pile of dark jadestone that radiated an exceptionally violent aura appeared in front of them. "These are very high-quality power jades," Ying'er said. "Rather than being used to assist one's cultivation, they are better used as fuel or an energy source." Yun-Chi extended a hand and felt the aura radiating from these dark power jades. He said in a low voice, "Very good. With them around, we have enough power to complete one long-range teleportation." The corner of Ying'er's brows twitched. "The primordial profound arc?" "Yes." Yun-Chi grabbed the power jades and stored them inside the sky poison pearl. The primordial profound arc's ability to teleport was something the heretic god carved into it using the world piercer. As a result, as long as it has enough fuel, it can function exactly like a void illusion stone. It can instantly teleport somewhere without leaving behind a single trace. It's just that using this method to traverse the god realm requires an extremely large amount of energy. These power jades could power a normal profound warship for centuries, but if we use them to activate the primordial profound arc's ability, to make extremely long-range jumps, it would probably only be enough for one or two such jumps. Ying'er was not the least bit surprised. If it truly could duplicate the effect of a void illusion stone, then even if they could only use it once or twice with that amount of fuel, it would still be worth it. "Healing, get Hunger to eat up all of these power jades right now." Yun-Chi gave those instructions mentally before he said, "Now, we've tied up all the loose ends, so plunder this place to your heart's content." All of the strange and fantastic abilities that Yun-Chi possessed made him very suited to be a thief. The defenses of this place, which other people would not even be able to take a single step into, disappeared in front of him as fast as snow under a midday sun. In an extremely short amount of time, this gigantic treasury, the accumulation of the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect's 10,000 years of backbreaking labor, had practically been emptied out by Yun-Chi. Its fate was exactly the same as the treasury in the Nine Lights Heavenly Palace. "Very good," Ying'er said. "This time you've gathered up enough resources to last you for a decent amount of time. Let's go." The remaining things were a bunch of stuff that was useless to him, but just as he was about to leave, He Ling's voice suddenly rang in his ears. Master, there is an extremely high-grade aura hidden beneath the corner on the right side of the room. He raised his left hand and the sky-poisoned pearl flashed with a faint light of exposure. What's going on? Upon noticing Yunqi's strange behavior, Ying'er's eyes swiveled towards him. Have you found something? Yunqi did not reply. He merely walked to the corner carefully and squatted down. Then he pinpointed the location that Ling had given him before gently slapping the ground with his fingers. Bang! With a soft ringing, the black jade floor under his feet cracked, revealing an invisible barrier. This barrier was extremely high level and unique. It did not radiate any aura, and it also isolated all auras. It was clear that it had been formed from some sort of unique, profound tool. Even though it was invisible, they were unable to see what was being sealed inside it. An immaculate barrier? Ying'er walked over. This thing is extremely rare. It is a barrier that can be said to be absolutely auraless, and it can only be created using an immaculate stone. Furthermore, even though the value of this immaculate stone isn't equivalent to that of a void illusion stone, it isn't far off. To think that this tiny Thousand Desolation Divine Sect actually has this sort of barrier, I am very curious about what's hidden inside. Upon saying that, her brows suddenly knit together. That's strange. One can't discover the existence of an immaculate barrier by using one's spiritual perception, so how did you end up finding it? As usual, Yunqi did not answer. He stretched out a hand, but he pulled it back just as he was about to touch the immaculate barrier. He asked, "How do we go about opening it?" "Given your current power, there's no way you can open it," Ying'er replied in a direct manner. "If it were so easy to open, then how could it be called an immaculate barrier?" Yunqi did not move, but his gaze grew more and more focused. After a brief period of silence, he slowly extended his hands, one of them clad in fire and the other in ice. Ying'er, the flame and ice slowly grew near to each other before coming into contact. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 10 breaths. The spatial laws in the area began to riot. Ying'er felt as if half of her body was burning up while the other half was freezing. The look in her beautiful eyes subtly changed as she dashed backward and stared at Yunqi's hands in shock. She stared at those flames which emitted an eerie azure light and went against all natural order. A flame that was radiating both heat and cold at the same time. "What is that?" she asked. This time, the thing she was witnessing had not only shattered her knowledge and common sense, it had also shattered the most basic elemental laws. Yunqi remained silent, and the ice flame in his hand slowly sank. The instant the ice flame touched the immaculate barrier, the barrier that, in Ying'er's own words, could not be broken, melted away instantly like a layer of thin ice and soundlessly disappeared, without a trace. Ying'er, Yunqi's hand swept down and the ice flame disappeared. After that, a diffuse purple light that was unimaginably pure shone on his face. This cluster of purple light instantly sucked in Ying'er's gaze. She took a step forward, her golden eyes freezing for a long period of time as she breathed out the next few words in an incredibly strange fashion. "Untamed divine marrow. Oh, to think that you recognize it as well." As he spoke, Yunqi's gaze was also fixed on the purple light. The object in front of them was indeed the untamed divine marrow. This name had come from Xianxia's teachings and the royal wood spirit orb's memories. This is a true divine object that contains primordial energy. How can I not know about it? An extremely strange light flashed through Ying'er's golden eyes. Even though I've never seen one before, this primordial energy, which seems to house the entire universe inside of it, is unmistakable. You wouldn't be able to get it wrong even if you tried. Primordial energy, anything that was associated with these words, always ended up being exalted and sacred objects. Even though Ying'er had recognized it with a single glance, she had also said she'd never seen it before. It was clear that even an existence like the Brahma monarch god realm had not been able to obtain such a thing. They only had records of it. Primordial energy is nearly extinct in the primal chaos realm, and to everyone's knowledge, this divine object, the untamed divine marrow, has long since disappeared from the face of this universe. This place is only a tiny superior sect in an upper star realm, so why would such a thing exist here? This is not something that an existence like the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect should have. It is also impossible that the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect erected this immaculate barrier, given their power. Yunqi's eyes flashed. That means that when the Burning Moon King Realm put this Thousand Desolation Divine Sect here, it was not only to punish and replace the heavenly Handle Yun clan. It was also to hide this untamed divine marrow. This is quite a huge and incidental harvest, Ying'er muttered as her eyebrows sank. A deep excitement and heat flashed in the depths of her golden eyes, just like when she had found out about Yun-Chi's heretic god divine powers all those years ago. If this divine object that should have already completely disappeared from this universe was as powerful as it was recorded to be, then as long as they found the correct method of usage, it would allow her to obtain a miraculous increase in strength. Yun-Chi extended his hand with incredible care. A thread of profound energy sank down, and the untamed divine marrow was moved into the sky-poisoned pearl. The purple light reflected in her pupils disappeared, but Ying'er's gaze remained fixed where the untamed divine marrow had been. She slowly said, "It looks like you've heard of the untamed divine marrow. Since that's the case, have you also heard of this name, the divine fruit of absolute beginning?" "I've heard of it," Yun-Chi said. He had also heard this name from Xianxia. "They only exist in the god realm of absolute beginning, and they are guarded by the dragons of absolute beginning. I also know that combining the untamed divine marrow and the divine fruit of absolute beginning will create something that should not exist in this current age." "The untamed world pellet," Ying'er said, her eyes glanced to the side. "These are things that the Dragon Queen told you about, right?" "She is Xianxia," Yun-Chi's voice turned frosty. "HMPH. Ying'er gave a low and cold laugh before saying, "There was a piece of untamed divine marrow in the northern divine region, and it actually fell into our laps. I'm truly afraid that you might have used up all your luck for the next few millennia. However, if this matter is discovered by the Burning Moon King realm," she said as her voice grew cold, "they will definitely chase us to the ends of the universe. At that time, it will be hard for us to find a safe haven even in the northern divine region. They were currently far from having the ability to confront a king realm. It's about time to leave." Yun-Chi did not show too much excitement over obtaining the untamed divine marrow, but neither did he show any fear. "Before we go, let's take the chance to rock this place while the most troublesome person is still away." "No," Ying'er said. "Now that we have taken the untamed divine marrow that was very likely hidden here by the Burning Moon King realm themselves, we should flee as far and as fast as we possibly can. However, if you're afraid that the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect will go and deal with the heavenly handle Yun clan, then why don't you leave them a big gift?" A sinister look flashed through Ying'er's eyes. "Today is that idiot crown prince's birthday, so every important person from the top sects in the Thousand Desolation realm are gathered here. If all of these people were to die here and their treasury were to be emptied, do you still think that the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect would have any spare time or energy to care about one heavenly handle Yun clan?" Two figures approached the Thousand Desolation Mountain from afar. They were both middle-aged men with similar figures. The one on the right was clothed in black and had a black beard. His face was stiff and cold, and it radiated a chilling and intimidating might even though he was not angry. His name alone could turn any of the territories in the Thousand Desolation realm upside down. The Thousand Desolation Sect Master. He was also the great realm king of this vast Thousand Desolation realm. The person beside him was of fair complexion, and he did not have a beard. His face was kindly, and his features were even and regular. In fact, he looked completely docile and harmless. However, as the two of them sped through the air, his position was, astonishingly enough, ahead of the Thousand Desolation Sect Master. If anyone in the Thousand Desolation realm saw this scene, they would be shocked silly. Furthermore, there was a scarlet flaming moon embroidered on his clothes. The sight of this symbol was enough to make any profound practitioner in the northern divine region shudder in fear. That was the symbol of one of the three great king realms of the northern divine region, the Burning Moon King realm. "Ninth Uncle, your purpose here today is to check on the vital object," the Thousand Desolation Sect Master said. As the most exalted existence in this realm, a divine master who stood at the peak of the profound way, he spoke to the person beside him in a deeply reverential and respectful manner. He had even unconsciously bent forward a little as he spoke to him. "Do you think that I really came all the way here to celebrate Tianer's 6,000th birthday?" the middle-aged man said with a hearty laugh. "Ninth Uncle's words are correct," the Thousand Desolation Sect Master said in a rather embarrassed manner. "Hey, the middle-aged man laughed even more. "In the end, Tianer is my grandnephew, so it's perfectly natural for me to come all this way to give him a present for something as big as his 6,000th birthday. I hope the present this time will be to his liking." The Thousand Desolation Sect Master hurriedly said. Tiana is unworthy of such words from Ninth Uncle. Even if Ninth Uncle's gift is just a piece of ordinary stone, Tiana will still definitely treasure it as much as he does his own life. The middle-aged man laughed and glanced at him before suddenly saying, Don't worry, your mission will soon be completed. At that time, I won't only be bringing you back to the Burning Moon heavenly region, I will bring Tiana along as well. Even though his lust for women is a bit excessive, when it comes to the profound way, his future accomplishments won't be inferior to yours. Our king has already tacitly approved of this matter. The Thousand Desolation Sect Master's body suddenly froze, but after that great euphoria swept over him, and he spoke in an extremely excited voice. Ninth Uncle, is this true? Do you think I'd be lying to you about this? The middle-aged man looked at the Thousand Desolation Mountain, which was growing larger in his vision before he suddenly sighed emotionally and said, Our king has waited for this moment for so many years, and now he is about to obtain his heart's desire. The Thousand Desolation Sect Master found it hard to contain the excitement showing on his face. He opened his mouth, and after several moments of hesitation, he finally could not help but ask, Ninth Uncle, there is one thing I've never understood. Since it is such an important item, then wouldn't the safest place be at the Lord God Emperor's side? Why did we need? The middle-aged man turned to look at him. The Thousand Desolation Sect Master's eyes shrank back, and he dared not utter a sound. The middle-aged man did not blame him. Instead, he laughed and said, Now that things have already come to this, there's no harm in telling you, because that item originally did not belong to our king. Rather, it was something our king obtained from the Clear Sky God realm 10,000 years ago. He had taken advantage of the great chaos plaguing the Clear Sky God realm at that time, and this all happened before the Clear Sky God realm's strange transformation. The Thousand Desolation Sect Master felt a great shock bloom in his heart. He had never imagined that this matter actually had something to do with the former Clear Sky God realm, which was also the present soul-stealing realm. After that, the Devil Queen took control of the Clear Sky God realm and changed its name to the soul-stealing realm. Given her intelligence, she definitely found out about the existence of that item from the Clear Sky God Emperor. The fruitless results of her search would naturally lead her to suspect that either our Burning Moon or the Hell Devil took advantage of Clear Sky's strange transformation and stole it. You've personally witnessed the power of the Immaculate Barrier. Even if you were standing half a foot away from it, you still wouldn't be able to sense its aura. However, it does have one drawback. As a spatial item of the highest order, it cannot be contained in any small worlds. Even someone as strong as our king would not be able to store it in the pocket of space that accompanies him wherever he goes. Furthermore, this Immaculate Barrier is also something that the former Clear Sky God Emperor erected. As such, no one can guarantee that the people from the Clear Sky God realm won't have a way of locating its existence. Is the Lord God Emperor afraid that the soul-stealing realm will find out? The Thousand Desolation Sect Master asked. No, that's only half the reason, the middle-aged man replied. No matter how intelligent the Devil Queen is, she would definitely never imagine that our king would actually leave such an important item in a sect located in another realm. The other reason is that the Devil Queen is simply far too terrifying. Even our king definitely does not want to clash with her unless he has no other choice. If this thing is discovered by her, then... He gave the Thousand Desolation Sect Master a deep look and said, This matter has nothing to do with the Burning Moon King realm or our king. Do you understand? I understand. The Thousand Desolation Sect Master immediately nodded his head. He did not dare to show the slightest hesitation. Ninth Uncle, the words you just said, has our Lord God Emperor found a way to open the Immaculate Barrier. Forcefully breaking open an Immaculate Barrier is simple, but if you did so, you would definitely damage the object contained within. Only the Clear Sky God Emperor, the person who set up the barrier back then, would be able to open this Immaculate Barrier without damaging the object inside it. However, even the power of an Immaculate Barrier will slowly dissipate over time. Our king has waited bitterly for 10,000 years, and the power of the Immaculate Barrier has finally about run itself out. At that time, everything will be complete. Oh, so that is how it is. The Thousand Desolation Sect Master came to a sudden realization. After that, he said, Speaking of these 10,000 years, does Ninth Uncle still remember the matter regarding the Heavenly Handle Yun clan? The time given to them is almost up. HMPH, You can settle a small matter like this however you please. There's no need to ask, the middle-aged man said in a casual and unbothered voice. Yes, the Thousand Desolation Sect master replied. This time, I will once again confirm the state of the Immaculate Barrier. If everything is as expected, then within 100 years, the two of you will... R-O-O-O-O-A-R. An earth-shaking dragon roar suddenly rang out from the Thousand Desolation Mountain in front of them. Even though they were still very far away, it still caused the souls of these two great divine masters to shake. After the dragon roar came a sudden eruption of golden firelight which filled the air in an instant. Their complexions dramatically changed at the same time. The Thousand Desolation Sect master let out a startled cry. Someone has invaded us. Let's go. The middle-aged man's expression became extremely ugly. He grabbed up the Thousand Desolation Sect master and rushed over. The birthday feast continued in the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince Hall. Even though the Crown Prince himself had abandoned the feast, no one would dare to insult him no matter how rude he was. Not a single person had left early. Ha 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 ha. A roar of great laughter filled the air as the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince swaggered back into the hall, his flushed face glowing with life. The Thousand Desolation Great Elder's brows furrowed, while everyone else got to their feet to welcome him. But he didn't say anything. At least he still knew how to return, and he had not died on top of that woman's body. Everyone has come here today for my sake. However, I had no choice but to take my leave for a moment just now. It was very impolite of me. The Thousand Desolation Crown Prince walked into the middle of the great hall and said in a clear and bright voice, "In order to assuage the guilt in my heart, I will take advantage of this birthday feast to give everyone a grand present." The great hall immediately grew lively as all of the people present started to respond. Even the Thousand Desolation Great Elder looked intrigued. Grand present? What present is His Highness going to give us? The Thousand Desolation Crown Prince gave a faint smile. Of course it is sending all of you to hell. As his voice fell, black light flashed from his eyes and the divine image of the primordial azure dragon appeared above him and suddenly unleashed an earth-shaking dragon roar. They were in the heart of the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect, participating in the Crown Prince's birthday feast, and looking at the Thousand Desolation Crown Prince at this current moment. So why would any of the people present have their guard up? Thus, this dragon roar which had suddenly erupted had caught everyone, from the Great Elder and the Divine Sovereign hegemons to the younger profound practitioners. It caused all of their wills to collapse in a single instant. Everyone was either plunged into the darkness or an abyss of fear. Xianxia's mouth split open into a cold and cruel laugh, golden flames igniting on his body. They spent one breath's worth of time gathering together before they violently exploded outwards. Yellow springs ashes. In that instant, it was as if a scorching golden sun had exploded into life above the Thousand Desolation Mountain, plunging all of the people in the great hall and countless profound practitioners outside into a fiery hell of death. How could these profound practitioners, whose souls and spirits had collapsed, due to the power of the dragon god domain, withstand the merciless incineration of the golden crow flames? They were swiftly burned to nothing within this sea of fire. Yunqi stretched out a hand, and the heaven-smiting sword appeared. In the next instant, he had already rushed out, hurtling toward those powerhouses who were peak divine sovereigns, and as a result, could resist being incinerated by the flames. Boom, an explosive sound rang out in this fiery hall, and the terrified and despairing Thousand Desolation Great Elder was instantly smashed into several pieces. Boom. It was the same blurring figure and the same explosion, and another peak divine sovereign, whose name shook the Thousand Desolation realm, who was an invincible existence in one region or another, was smashed to death by a sword. He didn't even leave behind a whole corpse. Boom, boom. 4 strokes of the sword had easily shattered 4 peak divine sovereigns like they were so much rotten wood. It was also at this time that Yunqi's eyes suddenly twitched, because a dangerous aura was zooming in on them from the west. Even though this dangerous aura was still relatively far away, it had still locked onto him with incomparable precision. Yunqi put away the heaven-smiting sword and swiftly rushed toward Ying'er's side. He grabbed her and said, "Let's go." Buzz. The storm around him wildly surged, and he reached the very limit of his speed in the blink of an eye as he swiftly flew toward the east. "You evil creatures, just lie down and accept your fates." An enraged roar rang out behind the two of them. Ah, they came back at a really bad time. Ying'er swept a gaze behind her, her gaze sinking slightly. a level 1 divine master, and the other one is very likely to be a mid-stage divine master. Looks like we won't be able to silence them, she muttered under her breath. If that untamed divine marrow was really hidden here by the Burning Moon King realm, then we've really poked a huge hornet's nest this time. However, the two of them were still unaware of the fact that this untamed divine marrow had originally belonged to the place that used to be the Clear Sky God realm, the current soul-stealing realm. In other words, when they had taken the untamed divine marrow, they had not only poked one giant hornet's nest, they had poked two. After he had gained the power of the storm and had spent some time comprehending it and practicing with it, Xianxia could already borrow storm profound energy to raise his speed by another level. But even with that, it would still be hard for his maximum speed to rival that of a mid-stage divine masters. The aura behind them was swiftly closing the distance. Xianxia's eyes flashed and he opened up Hell Monarch, causing his speed to explosively increase once more instantly. The distance between the two parties stopped shrinking, but Xianxia was still unable to shake off the pursuit of the middle-aged man. Furthermore, he could not maintain the state of Hell Monarch for too long. The moment he reached the limit, they would not only be swiftly overtaken, but the huge burden placed on his body would also mean that his ability to fight back would be drastically weakened. Xianxia's eyebrows knitted together slightly, but he did not show any fear. It was the same with Ying'er. Behind him, the middle-aged man and the Thousand Desolation Sect master, whom the middle-aged man had grabbed, were deeply shocked. Who are these people? What sort of grudges do they have against you? The middle-aged man asked. He felt as if an ocean was raging in his heart. It was impossible that he did not recognize someone who was able to match his speed. However, the aura of the people in front of him were clearly incomparably foreign. Furthermore, why did this kind of person attack the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect? I have no idea, the Thousand Desolation Sect master said with incomparable surety. We have never extended our power beyond the borders of the Thousand Desolation realm over all these years, so there's no way we've offended people from any other star realm. Furthermore, such an individual definitely does not exist in the Thousand Desolation realm. The middle-aged man's eyebrows sank and his heart suddenly grew uneasy. The chase continued. The incredibly dreadful speeds they were racing had generated equally dreadful storms over the huge distance they had already covered. At this time, Xianxia roughly looped an arm around Ying'er's waist. Then the primordial profound arc appeared, and the two people instantly vanished into thin air. They also vanished from the spiritual perception of the middle-aged man and the Thousand Desolation Sect master. The two men went pale due to their shock. Their bodies abruptly halted in midair, but they could no longer detect the presence of Xianxia or Ying'er with their eyes or their spiritual perception. Not even a trace of their auras was left behind. Xianxia and Ying'er's bodies appeared in the air above the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. Xianxia stared at the building below him, his gaze dark and sunken. Black light flashed in his hand, and he raised the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor sword high in the air. In an instant, darkness filled the air. Even though the primordial profound arc did not teleport a great distance this time, it still used up an extremely large amount of fuel. This had undoubtedly made Xianxia very upset. What are you going to do? Ying'er asked in a deep voice. They had used the primordial profound arc to escape the pursuit of the two great divine masters, but the place they had teleported to was actually the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. Furthermore, the very first thing Xianxia did was not to hide his aura and escape. It was to hold his devil sword aloft. This action was no different from forcefully thrusting them back into danger. Xianxia did not answer, but his heaven-smiting Devil Emperor sword radiated a black light that covered the sky. It was also at this time that the members of the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect discovered Xianxia's location and started to swarm around him. Hundreds of pitch-black pillars of light soared into the air around the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. The darkness formation that engulfed the entire Thousand Desolation Divine Sect suddenly started to coalesce from those pillars of light, releasing a gloomy darkness profound light. The instant this darkness profound formation appeared, startled shouts filled the air in the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect, which had already been thrown into great chaos. This is the great sect-protecting formation? Light abruptly shone in Ying'er's eyes. No, right now it's the great sect-destroying formation, Xianxia said in a low and sinister voice. Is this also the power of the eternal calamity of darkness? Ying'er raised her eyes to look at the black light radiating from Yun Qi's sword. Her golden pupils already dyed black by the light. The eternal calamity of darkness was the creation god art that belonged to the heaven-smiting devil emperor. This was a power of the highest order that belonged solely heaven-smiting devil emperor Jai Yuan, so it was impossible for even the true gods and other creation gods to control it, much less a mortal. However, it was clearly manifesting a devilish might which grew more and more shocking as Yun Qi used it, and his mastery of it was swiftly advancing. A great sect protecting formation was a sect's last ace in the hole. It would only be activated when the sect met with a truly hopeless situation. Its source of power was normally connected to the souls of the most prominent members of the sect, so another person trying to forcefully activate it was sheer fantasy. But right now, she was personally witnessing Yun Qi forcefully activating the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect's great sect protecting formation with incredible ease. Boom! All of the darkness power was completely released, and it erupted violently. The great sect protecting formation had instantly been transformed into a peerlessly terrifying great sect destroying formation. The entire Thousand Desolation Divine Sect was swallowed up by the darkness. It was as if it had suddenly been plunged into the dark abyss of death. Countless miserable screams rent the air and combined to form a funeral dirge that caused even the heavens and earth to shudder. "You're becoming more and more like a proper villain," Ying'er said as she looked at the scene below her. He had been able to use the eternal calamity of darkness to forcefully activate a darkness profound formation controlled by someone else. This heaven-defying ability would become the stuff of nightmares for a countless amount of people in the future. Yun Qi put his sword away, but he did not leave immediately. His gaze turned in the direction of the treasury that they had just raided. Black light flashed in his eyes, and he tapped a finger between his eyebrows. In the instant that his finger left that spot, a tiny bit of faint black light flickered on the tip of his finger. After he pointed his finger, that dot of black light gently floated toward the ground. "What is that?" This was another ability of Yun Qi's that Ying'er had not seen before. "It is a dark projection," Yun Qi said. "It can be counted amongst the most minor abilities of the eternal calamity of darkness." Their pursuers would definitely check on the untamed divine marrow, and they might very well discuss its origins. Minor, Ying'er made a dull, scoffing noise. Even the most minor of a devil emperor's abilities would be counted as an ability that could genuinely be called a heaven-defying ability in the current era. The ability to project something was not new. When he had been in the flame god realm back then, Yun Qi had witnessed Vermilion Bird Sect Master Yan Wangkang borrow the power of the god-burying Inferno prison to perform a super long-range Vermilion bird projection. During the profound god convention, the eternal heaven realm had projected all of the proceedings to every corner of the eastern divine region. The dark projection that Yun Qi had just performed was indeed one of the powers belonging to the eternal calamity of darkness, and it truly was nothing more than a normal projection ability. But its uniqueness lay in the fact that its existence could not be detected by anyone from this era due to the extremely high level of the eternal calamity of darkness. "Change your aura and go." Not bothering to take a second glance, Yun Qi swiftly fled south together with Ying'er. Ying'er could borrow the Nai Yuan stone's power to change her aura whenever she wanted to, while Yun Qi possessed the eternal calamity of darkness, so he could change the darkness aura that radiated from his body however he wanted. Now that they had escaped the spiritual perception of the two great divine masters, it would be even more difficult to find them again. Because even if the spiritual perception of the two great divine masters were to sweep the aura right now, it would only sweep past these two, completely unfamiliar, auras. They left the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect, and it was only after they had fled a great distance away that Yun Qi and Ying'er's speed started to slow. Yun Qi stopped using extreme mirage lightning and suddenly shot a look at Ying'er. He said, "Put on your mask." "Oh, that thing. I casually threw it away when you asked me to take it off." Ying'er's eyes coldly slanted. "Why didn't you notice?" Yun Qi thrust out a hand, and a piece of darkness profound crystal was held within it. Light flashed in his hand, and the darkness profound crystal had already transformed into an ordinary mask. After that, he held it out to Ying'er and said, "Wear it." Ying'er did not stretch out a hand to take it. She'd even turned her face to the side as she said, "You can't figure out why I threw it away. This is such a black and ugly thing. Why don't you just wear it yourself?" Yun Qi's brows knit together. He flipped his hand, and the darkness aura within the profound crystal was quickly dispersed. After he thought about it for a moment, the profound light in his hand subtly changed. He injected some Ice Phoenix divine power into the profound crystal, turning it a pure and lustrous ice blue color. After that, he thought about it for a bit more before shaping the mask into a rather delicate pair of phoenix wings. That's more like it. Ying'er finally turned back. With a swipe of her jade hand, she took the mask from Yunqi's hand and put it on, covering up most of her jade features once more. They really did end up going there, Yunqi suddenly said at this moment. There was a cluster of peculiar black light flashing in his eyes. Materialize the image for me to see, Ying'er said. It was hard for her to not to be interested in matters concerning the untamed divine marrow, a divine artifact that would undoubtedly shock the world if its existence was revealed. Yunqi did not refuse. His eyes flashed and a black mist floated up in front of him. The picture playing out in the middle of the black mist gradually grew larger. The two people captured in this picture were, shockingly enough, the two people who had just been pursuing them. The Thousand Desolation Sect master and a middle-aged man who very likely came from the Burning Moon King realm. The targets they had been chasing had suddenly and bizarrely vanished without a trace. The two of them still had not recovered from their bewilderment before the commotion coming from the Thousand Desolation Mountain gave them an even greater shock. They hurriedly ran all the way back, and everything they saw had undoubtedly shocked them to their very cores. What is going on? What happened here? The Thousand Desolation Sect master felt his limbs grow cold as the scalp of his head went numb. He was on the verge of collapse. All of a sudden, he seemed to realize something and his pupils shrank. He muttered the words Tian'er and hurriedly started to descend. But he felt someone grab his arm. He turned back only to discover that the middle-aged man's expression was even more frightening than his own. Forget about this, Tian'er. The Immaculate Barrier. We need to hurry up and check on the Immaculate Barrier. The Thousand Desolation Sect master quivered, and his mind cleared up as he hurriedly replied, Ninth Uncle, please don't worry, no one can raid the treasury. Furthermore, there is no way for anyone to find an existence like the Immaculate Barrier, no matter what they do. Stop wasting your breath and hurry up, hurry and go check. To the middle-aged man, the Immaculate Barrier was far more important than the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. No, it was far more important than 1,000 Desolation Divine Sects. The two people no longer bothered checking anything else as they quickly made their descent. The forcefully activated Great Sect Protecting Formation had destroyed nearly 30% of the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect. Even though the treasury possessed protection that was of the highest level, it also just so happened to be in the heart of the Great Sect Protecting Formation. Thus, when that sect protecting power had been turned into a destructive force, it had undoubtedly received the most damage. Most of it had been destroyed. When they saw the treasury that had been exposed to the sun, they also saw that it had been ransacked. The expression on the two people's faces dramatically changed, and they rushed toward the corner where the Immaculate Barrier had been hidden. What they saw shocked them so greatly that their souls nearly left their bodies. The Immaculate Barrier? The middle-aged man stepped forward, his body turned ice cold. He suddenly grabbed the Thousand Desolation Sect master, his eyes bulging as he crazily roared, Where is the Immaculate Barrier? Where did it go? Where did it go? I don't know. The Thousand Desolation Sect master's soul had already flown to the heavens. 12 hours ago, I even deliberately confirmed that it was still, this isn't possible, this isn't possible. You, the middle-aged man's body shuddered. His face was as black as an evil spirit's, and blood was very nearly exploding from the veins of fingers. Do you know just how much our king values the object within the Immaculate Barrier? Let me tell you, you won't be able to pay for this grave sin, even if you have 10 million lives. Our king? Ying'er's expression changed slightly. She swept her eyes over the middle-aged man's attire before she gave a soft snort and said, This person really did turn out to be a divine envoy of the Burning Moon King realm. That also means that this piece of untamed divine marrow really was something that belonged to the Burning Moon King realm. But why didn't the Burning Moon King realm use it instead of hiding it in a place like this? Ying'er muttered in a soft voice. It was those two. The Thousand Desolation Sect master grasped onto this last thread of hope. It's definitely been taken by those two people. As long as we can catch them, we can retrieve the Immaculate Barrier as well. They've definitely not run very far. Hess! The Burning Moon Divine Envoy gave a cold laugh. Why don't you use your brain and think about why they would come all the way here, and why they were able to so accurately pinpoint the location of the Immaculate Barrier? The Thousand Desolation Sect Master was stunned for a moment, but after that his face changed and he said, could they be from the soul-stealing realm? The Burning Moon Divine Envoy muttered in a low voice. They are definitely people from the soul-stealing realm. The Immaculate Barrier is invisible and radiates no aura, so the only people who might be able to sense the location of the Immaculate Barrier are people from the soul-stealing realm. Both Xianxia and Ying'er were stunned by those words. Soul-stealing realm? What does this piece of untamed divine marrow have to do with the soul-stealing realm? Ying'er muttered to herself. She suddenly felt some unease creep into her heart. The Burning Moon Divine Envoy did not speak any further. He released the Thousand Desolation Sect Master and soared into the sky. He pushed both arms forward, and a darkness profound formation, the shape of a full moon, immediately shone to life in front of him. After that, the profound formation started to rotate, causing a blurry and shadowy image to slowly coalesce in the air. Even though it was only a blurry image that roughly captured the image of a person, an image that did not even allow others to see the features of his face properly, it still soundlessly radiated an intimidating might that seemed to cover the skies. As he faced this blurry image, the Burning Moon Divine Envoy bowed in midair. I greet our king. For disturbing our king's silent meditation, I deserve 10,000 deaths. When he heard those unexpected words, the Thousand Desolation Sect Master's body fiercely shuddered, and a paralyzing cold seeped into his very bone marrow. He sank to his knees on the ground in a heap, and both his body and his voice trembled madly due to his extreme fear. This humble King, Thousand Desolation, greets the Burning Moon God Emperor. How exciting, Ying'er muttered with narrowed eyes. We really did end up alerting the Burning Moon God Emperor. Too bad we can't see his face, because I really do want to see just what this God Emperor belonging to the Northern Divine region looks like. What happened? The Burning Moon God Emperor's voice rang out from the profound formation, every word filled with a devilish might that shook the soul. If nothing major had happened, how would a Burning Moon Divine Envoy dare to activate this formation? The Burning Moon Envoy cleared his throat and spoke with much difficulty. Replying, our king, the Immaculate Barrier that was hidden in the Thousand Desolation realm has been. The Burning Moon Divine Envoy's voice stopped there, and he was unable to continue, because he very clearly felt an incomparably dreadful gaze nearly pierce through his trembling soul in that instant. After a spell of incomparably dreadful silence, the Burning Moon God Emperor's voice rang out in the air again, and he only spoke 3 words. Who was it? The Burning Moon Divine Envoy's gaze turned toward the Thousand Desolation Sect Master. A sudden realization pierced his fear-fogged mind, and he suddenly shouted, I remember now. One of those 2 people, his name is Xianxia. The Burning Moon Divine Envoy's head swiveled towards him. What did you say? Are you sure it's that name? I've never heard that the soul-stealing realm had someone with that name. No, he shouldn't be from the soul-stealing realm, the Thousand Desolation Sect Master said in a fluster. Just a few days ago, my sect's chief enforcer, Devotee Empty Mind, went to the Heavenly Handle Yun clan on some business, and he was killed by a person named Xianxia. And it was reported that the woman who was traveling alongside him possessed extremely rare golden hair. Those 2 people just now, that woman also happened to have golden hair. I've been in the Thousand Desolation realm for so many years, and I've never seen a woman with golden hair here before. It definitely can't be a coincidence. 500 kilometers away, Xianxia slanted his eyes toward Ying'er and said in a cold voice, Your hair is really a hindrance. Why didn't you hide it? Even though she no longer possessed the power of a Brahma god, Ying'er, who hated Fanchon to the bone, had not been willing to give up her hair color. Ying'er said, The profound arts of the Brahma monarch god realm will release golden-colored profound light, and it can also turn one's hair the color of shining gold. However, my hair color did not come from the Brahma god divine power that I used initially. It came from my mother, Xianxia. It's the one thing I can't throw away. Ying'er had not said those words coldly. She had said them with a calm determination. No one asked you to throw it away, Xianxia ordered. Hide it. Aren't you the one who hates exposing fatal weaknesses, let alone a weakness as obvious as this one? Ying'er gave a cold snort before black light flashed in her eyes. In a flash, black light curled and twined around her golden hair and turned it pitch black, the color of night. Xianxia, is he from the sinful Yun clan? the Burning Moon Divine Envoy asked in a deep voice. No, the Thousand Desolation Sect Master replied. I did not personally pay a visit to the sinful Yun clan because I was busy preparing for a major event over the last few days. But I did manage to find out where Yun Chi came from. He is not a member of the sinful Yun clan. Rather, he came from the 5 Nether Ruins, and he only just arrived in the Thousand Desolation realm last month. It looks like there are spies belonging to the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect hidden inside the Heavenly Handle Yun clan, Ying'er said. Isn't that to be expected? Yun Chi replied icily. The Thousand Desolation Sect Master's voice turned anxious as he earnestly said, Look into his background. Given the Burning Moon King Realm's incredible power, there is no way he can escape. The Immaculate Barrier will surely return to Lord God Emperor's hands at once. The Burning Moon God Emperor remained silent within that profound formation. However, at this moment, a woman's voice rang in the air. Are you sure that person is called Yun Chi? That voice was faint and indistinct, yet it sounded like it had come from very near them. The Burning Moon Divine Envoy and the Thousand Desolation Sect Master felt all of their hair stand on end as they whirled around. A woman was quietly standing in midair. She was wearing bright and shimmery clothes, and she was not even 60 meters away from them. She had drawn so near, yet neither of the great divine masters had sensed her presence. Who is that? Ying'er's brow wrinkled slightly. She had suddenly appeared within the projection without a single sound. It was as if a ghost had materialized out of thin air. The Thousand Desolation Sect Master and the Burning Moon Divine Envoy were the 2 strong divine masters. Their reactions told Yun Chi and Ying'er just how dreadful this person's strength was. This was especially due to the fact that she could draw so near to a mid-stage divine master like the Burning Moon Divine Envoy without being detected. That in itself was a feat that required her to be at least half a great realm of power stronger than him. Furthermore, the words she had just spoken seemed to indicate that she recognized the name Yun Chi. The woman was dressed in extremely bizarre colorful clothes that resembled a collection of gorgeous rainbow colors rather than clothes. Even her long hair was made up of a myriad of colors, and she was surrounded by an ever-changing halo of strange lights. However, even though colorful lights rippled all around her, it did not seem the least bit chaotic or messy. The only thing that this riot of colors conveyed was a dreamlike sense of beauty. Moreover, these multicolored hues were not made up of any ordinary lights. They all seemed to be able to isolate auras. She had clearly come so near them, and they were staring at her right now. But no matter whether it was the Burning Moon Divine Envoy or the Thousand Desolation Sect Master, neither one could sense her presence. It was as though they were staring at a colorful illusion that would dissipate with a single touch. You are... Even though the multicolored lights made it so that the Burning Moon Divine Envoy was unable to make out her face or figure, these colorful lights which could isolate all auras caused a single name to suddenly reverberate in his head. It was a name that made his soul instantly seize up in shock and fear. At this time, the Burning Moon God Emperor's low and deep voice rang out from the black profound formation. Seventh Witch, it can't be a coincidence that you've appeared in this place. Seventh Witch, the 2 words uttered by the Burning Moon God Emperor, caused the Thousand Desolation Sect Master's face to blanch in shock. This woman wrapped in rainbow light was actually one of the 9 witches who served under the Devil Queen, an existence that stood at the very pinnacle of the northern divine region. Sadly enough, there are indeed many coincidences in this world, the 7th Witch said in a faint voice. I really did just happen to be traveling through this place when I suddenly received an order from my master informing me that the divine object my soul-stealing realm lost 10,000 years ago had given off a reaction here. But Burning Moon God Emperor, surely you won't tell me that this projection and divine envoy of yours appearing in this place is also a coincidence, The 7th Witch's voice had clearly darkened, even though she was facing the Burning Moon God Emperor himself. She had not only seen the Burning Moon Divine Envoy and the Burning Moon God Emperor's projection, she'd even heard their conversation. He. The Burning Moon God Emperor forced down his rage as he gave a chuckle and said, Since the object has returned to its original master, then are these other small matters even important? The object has returned to its original master. The 7th Witch gave a cold laugh. If it had truly been taken by us, then all of our strength would be used to escort it back to where our master is, and there's no way I'd appear in this place. The Burning Moon God Emperor. The reason why Master could sense that divine object is because the clear sky god emperor left a unique imprint on it. But previously, the immaculate barrier had been isolating it so she could not detect it. The fact that she sensed for an instant just now proves that it has not only been taken by someone else, but also that the immaculate barrier had been opened. Wah, at? The burning moon god emperor's voice suddenly turned low and deep. It was extremely difficult to force open an immaculate barrier. If that was not the case, then someone as strong as the burning moon god emperor would not need to hatch this scheme of hiding it within the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect for a whole 10 millennia. If the immaculate barrier had truly been broken, then it undoubtedly meant that the other party could use the untamed divine marrow at any time. At that point, no one would be able to recover it anymore. His 10 millennia of plotting and planning would turn into nothing but bubbles and air. All his efforts would have gone to another, and he would definitely suffer the Devil Queen's wrath as well. For all of these years, my master has never stopped looking for traces of this divine object. These 10,000 years that have passed have also stoked the fires of her anger. Burning Moon God Emperor, if my master truly becomes enraged, I believe that you know better than anyone else how terrifying the consequences will be. The Burning Moon God Emperor did not speak. Even though it was only a projection, it still radiated an incomparably shocking and heavy darkness that everyone could sense. You'd better pray that my master can get back that divine object. If not, I really can't imagine what you, the Burning Moon God Emperor, can do to calm my master's wrath. The seventh witch's voice fell. She stretched out an arm, and a colorful image suddenly burst out of her body. It was as if millions of colorful ribbons had burst out and twined themselves around the Thousand Desolation Sect master. This powerful upper realm king could only let out a startled shout before he was completely sealed in that multicolored barrier. He was not even able to put up a fight. The Burning Moon Divine Envoy's pupils shrank as he started to swiftly retreat. I've taken in this incompetent dog of yours. I trust that the Burning Moon God Emperor has no objections, the seventh witch said coldly. The Thousand Desolation Sect Master was the one who had uttered the name Xianxia, so it was clear that he knew a lot of useful things. HMPH, send the Devil Queen this king's regards. The Burning Moon God Emperor gave a cold snort, and the profound formation also suddenly collapsed and disappeared. We respectfully send off our king. The Burning Moon Divine Envoy forcefully steeled his resolve, but now that he was facing a witch, he could not suppress the fear that bubbled up from his soul and his knowledge of these dreadful creatures. The current matter that is most urgent is the recovery of the divine object. Those thieves definitely haven't fled too far. Given your highness's powers, catching them will be as easy as flipping a hand. This humble servant is willing to aid your highness in this endeavor. The woman in front of him was the soul-stealing realm's seventh witch Hua Jin, who was also called the illusory concubine of myriad colors. She was said to have 1,000 faces and ways to get the job done. It was also rumored that no one else had seen her true face besides the Devil Queen herself. Every single one of the 9 witches that served under the Devil Queen had their own speciality. The seventh witch's strong point lay in the art of transformation, and this ability of hers was practically unrivaled in the northern region. She could disguise her face, her voice, the shape of her body, and her aura. It was also rumored that no one could see through her disguises. I've already dispatched people to lay down a net over the entire Thousand Desolation realm. Witch Hua Jin turned around. You should take this chance to scram, while I still don't feel like dirtying my own hands. The Burning Moon Divine Envoy's feet had already been backpedaling. Upon hearing these words, his very first reaction was not shame or rage. Instead, he felt as if he had received salvation. He did not dare say another word and scuttled off in fear. Yet another witch, Xianxia said in a low voice. They had met Nanfeng Channy not too long ago, and it had not been easy for them to escape her notice. To think that they would meet another one. You should ask yourself exactly why this has happened, Ying'er said in a very huffy voice. It would be rare for a commoner to meet someone like a witch even once in their lives. But you have only been in the northern divine region for about a year, and you've already met 2 of them. They were practically sucked in by your constitution of ill omen and calamity, Xianxia. Ying'er suddenly extended a hand and grabbed Xianxia. Let's go. Let's leave this place immediately. Where? The God realm of absolute beginning, Ying'er said in a low and unhurried voice. There's no need, Xianxia said. They won't be able to find us. He could disguise himself, and he could change the darkness aura he radiated while Kai and Ying'er possessed the Nai Yuan stone. Both of them could turn invisible. As for the untamed divine marrow, even though it was marked with a tracking imprint, it would not be able to be sensed if it was in the sky poison pearl, no matter how strong that tracking imprint was. No, the seriousness of this matter far exceeds what I had imagined, Kai and Ying'er said in a deep voice. At first, I thought that we would only offend a burning moon king realm at most, but now, the soul-stealing realm has also been dragged into this. You think that our ability to hide ourselves is completely infallible. If you look down on a king realm, you will die a miserable death, much less two king realms. Kai and Ying'er's voice grew deeper and darker. There is no such thing as being truly infallible in this world. You haven't so quickly forgotten the lesson dealt to you by Nanhuang Chani, right? Given our current power, meeting anyone from these two great king realms would mean our certain doom. Besides, the current problem isn't only that we have obtained the untamed divine marrow, Kai and Ying'er continued. The northern region's devil queen used Nanhuang Chani to communicate with us before, and she used the word cooperation back then. We somehow managed to agree to stave it off with a 300-year agreement. But today, the northern region's devil queen will very soon discover that we were the ones who took the untamed divine marrow, and at that time, the speed of your growth will be exposed. When you first met Nanhuang Chani, defeating a mid-stage divine sovereign was our limit. But right now, we managed to ruin the comparatively large Thousand Desolation Divine Sect, and we even managed to open the immaculate barrier that even the burning moon god emperor has been helpless to open. It has not even been a year between now and then. This speed of growth is enough to deeply shock even the devil queen. She will immediately realize that the 300-year agreement was nothing more than a pretense to get her off our backs. The reason why she wants to recruit you into the soul-stealing realm is because of your potential, the true God prophecy that hangs over your head, and your hatred of the Eastern divine region. But it is precisely because of these things that she definitely won't allow you to grow beyond her control before she can fully sink her claws into you. Previously, given all logic and common sense, it was impossible for you to grow beyond her control in a short 300 years. But after the events of today, she will definitely no longer feel this way. There is no way she will really stick to our previous agreement of 300 years. We hold Nanhuang Chani's weakness in our hand, but the most we can influence is Nanhuang Chani herself. We won't be able to affect the Devil Queen. Kai and Ying'er's gaze swiveled toward Yun-Chi as she glowered at him. Do you know why the soul-stealing realm is called the soul-stealing realm? If the current you were to fall into the hands of the northern region's Devil Queen, you might very well become her puppet for the rest of your life. Do not ever think that she won't be able to do such a thing to you. I think that I am a clever person, yet I spent my entire life dancing like a toy in the palm of that old villain, Kai and Fanchen. Yet the northern region's devil queen, Kai Waiao, is someone who left a lifelong shadow in his heart. Right now, you don't have the qualifications to go up against her. Do you understand? What else? Yun-Chi said. The untamed divine marrow is an item that should be extinct. A strange light briefly flashed in the depths of Kai and Ying'er's eyes. So the piece that fell into our hands may very well be the only one that still exists in this present age. If we were to simply use it like this, it'd be far too much of a pity. If we are able to find a fabled divine fruit of absolute beginning in the god realm of absolute beginning, and use these two items to refine the untamed world pellet, it won't be as simple as taking a huge step forward on our road to vengeance. At that time, with the power of the eternal calamity of darkness, you might very well have truly obtained the qualifications to cooperate with the northern region's devil queen, Yun-Chi. Don't worry. Kai Waiao is an extremely intelligent and ambitious person, Kai and Ying'er said in a low voice. Even though she will be extremely furious once she finds out that you've used the untamed divine marrow and there is no way to recover it, she will know how to cut her losses and cooperate with you. After all, even though there won't be another piece of untamed divine marrow in this world, there also won't be another you. I'm afraid the second result is what you're truly aiming for, right? Yun-Chi gave Kai and Ying'er a deep look, but he did not speak the words that were on his mind. Instead he said, well said, let's go then. You're sure that you want to go now? You're not worried about the people of the Heavenly Handle Yun clan, Kai and Ying'er said. No matter whether it is the soul-stealing realm or the burning moon king realm, both parties will definitely trace them to you. I'm not worried, Yun-Chi said. If that devil queen is truly as intelligent as you say she is, then she won't touch the members of the heavenly Handle Yun clan. At the very least, she will make sure to protect Yun Shang. Let's go! Perhaps Yun Qi was truly possessed by a star of ill omen. He was wanted dead or alive by the 3 divine regions and had been forced into the northern divine region. After a short year, a witch had discovered his identity, and he had unwittingly laid his hands on a piece of untamed divine marrow, an object that concerned 2 king realms. But now even the northern divine region had become a dangerous place where he could find nary a place to rest. The god realm of absolute beginning had seemingly become the last place they could go. Time flowed on, and yet another year had passed. The eastern divine region, which had grown restless for a period of time, was finally starting to quiet down again. The efforts to search for the devil Yun Qi were growing more and more muted, and after obtaining no results from these efforts, all the king realms confirmed that he had indeed fled into the northern divine region. However, they were unaware of one thing. While Yun Qi had indeed fled into the northern divine region initially, a year ago, he had left the northern divine region and entered the god realm of absolute beginning. It was just that their ability to conceal themselves was simply too great. So even the people in the northern divine region who knew of Yun Qi's existence were unable to detect them, much less the people from the other 3 divine regions. Eastern divine region, moon god realm. The star god realm has started to rebuild itself, but they still haven't found a single trace of Xing Jukong. The eternal heaven god realm has recalled most of their adjudicators, but the eternal heaven god emperor himself hasn't made an appearance for a very long time. However, we obtained news of an unconfirmed rumor a few days ago. It was a rumor that the eternal heaven god realm seemed to have begun preparing for Zhou Qingchen's trial by fire. Trial by fire? A strange look appeared in Xia Qingyu's eyes. Is the eternal heaven god emperor prepared to allow Zhou Qingchen inherit the position of god emperor earlier than expected? Zhou Qingchen is still inexperienced. Lion Yue started to speak, but she suddenly realized that her own master was the youngest and most inexperienced god emperor in the history of the god realm, so she hurriedly changed the subject. Given the eternal heaven god emperor's current status and reputation, there is no reason for him to relinquish his seat. This rumor probably isn't true. No, there's a very high chance that it is true, Xia Qingyu said unhurriedly. Even as strong as the eternal heaven god emperor is, it's hard to endure such a towering sense of guilt. Guilt? Lion Yue was shocked and puzzled by those words. Did we obtain any results regarding the glazed light realm? Xia Qingyu did not explain any further as she asked a new question. Replying to Master, Lion Yue said as her gaze grew focused. Everything was as Master predicted. During the 24 hours in which Yun Qi had made his first escape and disappeared into thin air, he had indeed hidden himself in the glazed light realm. As expected, purple light appeared in Xia Qingyu's eyes. The glazed light realm is truly bold. However, Yun Qi did not make it to the glazed light realm on his own back then. After he was sent away by Qianai Ying'er's void illusion stone, he had already lost consciousness. It was someone else who delivered him to the glazed light realm, Lion Yue continued. Who was it? The new realm king of the flame god realm, Hu Poyun. After that, she lapsed into a brief period of silence. Her delicate, crescent moon-like brows knitted together slightly. Him? As she recalled the scene of the assembled divine masters who sent off the heaven-smiting devil emperor in front of the wall of primal chaos, she confirmed that Hu Poyun was indeed not present. This maidservant has investigated this matter in detail, Lion Yue said. On the day the heaven-smiting devil emperor was sent off, Hu Poyun did indeed leave the flame god realm. However, he never arrived at the eternal heaven god realm. Perhaps he changed his mind halfway through the journey, and when he was returning home, he came across an unconscious Yun Qi and sent him to the glazed light realm. After she thought about it for a brief moment, Xia Qingyu said, Lion Yue, prepare a sound transmission formation and connect it to all the king realms and upper star realms. Publicly announce the matter of the glazed light realm hiding the devil Yun Qi 2 years ago. Yes. Lion Yue was clearly shaken by these instructions, but she immediately agreed to them and she did not ask why she had been given them. However, do not mention what happened with Hu Poyun. It would be best for all traces of that story to be erased. Yes. Xia Qingyu slowly got to her feet, and in the time it took her to pace back and forth, an astonishingly oppressive might cause the space around her to tremble. Yao Yue, a beautiful woman, soundlessly appeared under a beam of faint blue light and slowly knelt down. Master, follow me on a trip to the glazed light realm. Yes. Yao Yue received her orders, but after that she casually asked, what does Master intend to do there? Kill Shui Qianheng? Xia Qingyu's words were dark and heavy. Lion Yue and Yao Yue were both shocked by those words. The bewildered Yao Yue spoke. Master, Shui Qianheng is no ordinary higher realm king. The glazed light realm's power and fame stand at the fore of all the upper star realms, and they have a good relationship with several king realms. Without sufficient reason, Master should carefully think this over. HMPH, hiding and protecting a devil is already a grave crime. Furthermore, Yun Qi is no ordinary devil. Now that he has fled into the northern divine region, we have left an incalculable calamity to fester. If not for the fact that the glazed light realm hid him all those years ago, this calamity might have been snuffed out years ago. This is a crime that all creation can be executed for. Yao Yue's head jerked up. If I don't kill him, someone will definitely come and kill him once this matter has been exposed. Since that's the case, why should we sit on our hands and wait for someone else to do it? As purple light flashed over her body, her loose and relaxed blue robes had transformed into the intimidating and cold Moon Emperor robes. Yao Yue, we will depart for the glazed light realm immediately. Lion Yue, send this sound transmission to the eternal heaven god realm immediately. Send it out to the rest of the king realms and upper star realms 2 hours from now. A purple light shone in the air above the glazed light realm, as it seemingly swallowed up all of the other light in the glazed light realm. It was just that this purple light was far too cold, and every living creature bathed in this purple light silently trembled as their bodies and souls went cold. Ha ha ha! An exceptionally bright and carefree laugh broke the icy purple silence. Shui Qianheng's figure zoomed in from afar at breakneck speed as he greeted them from afar. Purple clouds filled the glazed light realm sky today, and that is an exceedingly auspicious omen indeed. But to think that it was actually the Moon God Emperor and Blue Jade Moon God paying us a personal visit. This is far more than simple good fortune. Shui Qianheng had not come to greet them by himself. 2 women followed closely behind him, and they were the 2 daughters he was most proud of, Shui Yingyu and Shui Meiyin. After those 3,000 years in the eternal heaven divine realm, both of his daughters had become divine masters. One of them had become a level 5 divine master, and the other had become a level 7 divine master. They were the miracles of the glazed light realm. Furthermore, Shui Meiyin was considered a miracle of the entire eastern divine region, and she had even been crowned a goddess whose name approached Qianai Ying'er. Amidst Shui Qianheng's loud laughter, Shui Yingyu and Shui Meiyin stood at her father's side and curtsied toward her at the same time. However, Xia Qingyu's jade face was like a cold moon. Shui Qianheng, do you want to take your own life? Or do you want this king to be the one to do it for you? When that purple light flashed into existence over their skies, that bone-piercing cold had caused Shui Qianheng to feel uneasy. Now that Xia Qingyu had said those words, he felt his heart lurch, and the expressions on Shui Yingyu and Shui Meiyin's faces dramatically changed as well. Doubt appeared on Shui Qianheng's face as he asked, This Qianheng is not sure of what crime he committed to have incurred such anger from the Moon God Emperor. Xia Qingyu did not dither with him and cut straight to the chase. Her cold eyes grew focused as she said, 2 years ago, when Yun Qi outed himself as a devil, who was the one who hid him away during the 24 hours that the entire world was chasing after him. Shui Qianheng clenched his fists tightly. Shui Qianheng, are you going to try to deny it? Xia Qingyu's voice grew even icier, and her peerlessly beautiful eyes now pierced through his soul like merciless purple blades. Moon God Emperor, Shui Yingyu said, about that. Shut up. Just as Shui Yingyu spoke, Shui Qianheng already let out a low roar. There is no room for you to speak here. Shui Yingyu. After he sucked in a heavy breath, a bitter smile formed on Shui Qianheng's face. If the evidence were not conclusive, would the noble and honorable Moon God Emperor have come all the way here in person? But in front of the Moon God realm and the Blue Jade Moon God, this Qianheng does indeed have no right to make excuses. Daddy! Shui Meiyin grabbed the corner of her father's robes, her starry eyes trembling, her lips pale and bloodless. She knew that this day would eventually come. She just never imagined that the first person to come calling would actually be her. Very good, at least you still possess some of the bearing of a realm king, Xia Qingyu said unhurriedly. Even though it is a grave crime to hide and harbor a devil, given your status as the glazed light realm king, there was perhaps no one who could investigate you. However, hiding the devil Yunqi has ultimately resulted in leaving behind a huge calamity that will plague the entire eastern divine region in the future. Even though you are the glazed light realm king, 10,000 deaths would not be enough to pay for your crimes. As her voice fell, purple light suddenly flashed in Xianxia's hand. Shockingly enough, the purple pylon divine sword, the symbol of the moon god emperor and the strongest sword in the moon god realm, appeared in her hand. A purple sword projection exploded out from the tip of the purple pylon divine sword and shot toward Shui Qianheng. She actually had not even given Shui Qianheng a chance to explain himself or leave behind any last words. She had mercilessly pushed him towards death. Shui Qianheng did not move an inch. Ah! The color drained from Shui Yingyu and Shui Meiyan's faces as they let out great cries of alarm and took action simultaneously. However, in nearly the exact same instance, Shui Qianheng took action as well. However, he did not move to block the purple pylon sword projection. Instead, he shot 2 blasts of energy at his daughters, one from each palm. Boom! Space ruptured and Shui Yingyu and Shui Meiyan were blasted into the distance. In their violently contracting pupils, they saw the purple pylon sword projection directly pierce Shui Qianheng's chest and slide through his body. Father! Daddy! Yuog! Shui Qianheng's body stiffened, and blood gradually drained from his face. His daughter's heart-wrenching cries rang in his ears as he looked down and stared at the purple sword projection which transfixed his body. However, he still did not put up a fight as a level 8 divine master. As someone who stood at the peak of all upper realm kings, if he were to resist, then even Xianxia would not find it so easy to kill him. Xianxia gripped the purple pylon divine sword which had impaled Shui Qianheng and looked down slightly. Shui Qianheng, you've made an intelligent choice. If you had dared to dodge this sword stroke, you would not have been the only one to die. If you and I had fought, countless members of the glazed light realm would have ended up being buried with you. Father! As she saw Shui Qianheng get run through by a sword, the light in Shui Yingyu's eyes shattered, and she let out a sorrowful cry, "Moon God Emperor, I will kill you." The jade rivulet sword appeared, and blue light shone in the air as a curtain of water cascaded from the sky and fell toward Xianxia. Yingyu, stop! Shui Qianheng turned his head back with much difficulty. He waved an arm and forced his body to move, stopping Shui Yingyu's full power in a single instant and blasting her into distance once more. Forcing out an attack while the purple pylon pierced his heart had undoubtedly aggravated his injuries badly. Blood immediately spurted out from Shui Qianheng's mouth as he let out a hoarse yell. "Do you want my death to be in vain?" The jade rivulet sword fell from her hands as Shui Yingyu sank to her knees, her eyes dazed and filled with sorrow. Shui Meiyan did not move. Moon, God, Emperor. Every word that Shui Qianheng said was accompanied by flecks of blood. Hiding Yunqi was my idea, no one else was aware of it. Even if they knew, there was no way they could defy my will. If the Moon God Emperor wants to punish me, I have nothing to say to defend myself. But please, do not implicate the innocent in this. Xianxia coldly said, "I said that I would only kill you alone, and I meant what I said. Of course, if anyone still dares to try to stop me." Her gaze swept over Shui Yingyu and Shui Meiyan. "They will suffer the same fate. Before I came here, this king already announced the matter of you hiding the devil Yunqi to the world. If this king doesn't kill you, someone else will come to kill you. At the very least, you will still be able to die painlessly at this king's hands." Purple light faintly shone in Xianxia's eyes, and the divine light radiating from her sword projection also subtly changed. "So now you may go to your death in peace. Stop, stop." This loud roar had not come from Shui Yingyu or Shui Meiyan. Instead, it had rung out in the skies above them, from an incredibly distant location. An aura was rushing toward their location at breakneck speed, and before his body had even appeared, a gigantic pale white hand suddenly descended and firmly grasped the purple sword projection which transfixed Shui Qianheng's body as it solidly suppressed the purple pylon divine power that was about to erupt. Xianxia's brow furrowed and her eyes slowly slid to the side as she spoke to the empty air. "Eternal Heaven God Emperor, you want to protect him." Just as Xianxia's voice fell, a white-colored figure streaked over at the speed of light. It was the Eternal Heaven God Emperor. He had come by himself, and there were no auras following after him. The Eternal Heaven God Emperor extended a hand and grabbed the purple sword projection. The previous pale hand imprint disappeared after that. It was only then that he opened his mouth to say, "Let him off, please." His voice sounded powerless, and every word was filled with lamentation. Xia Qingyu's brow greatly furrowed. Eternal Heaven God Emperor, could it be that you are unaware of the crime he committed a few years ago? AI. The Eternal Heaven God Emperor let out a long sigh and said, his act of hiding Yun Qi was a grave crime indeed. However, this old one has known the glazed light realm king for 10,000 years, so this old one knows him all too well. The person he hid that day was no more than the son-in-law that he had acknowledged. He definitely did not have any intention of harboring a devil. Given his personality, this old one does not find it strange at all that he did such a thing. Eternal Heaven God Emperor, Xia Qingyu said with a frown, Yun Qi has successfully fled into the northern divine region. Once he matures in the future and is used by the northern divine region, no one can predict what sort of consequences will result from that. If Shui Qianheng had not hidden Yun Qi back then, this festering calamity would not even exist. This king cannot think of a single reason to forgive this grave crime which has caused disaster for the entire eastern divine region, the entire God realm. The Eternal Heaven God Emperor shook his head. Given Yun Qi's ability to conceal himself, even if the glazed light realm king had not hidden him, it would have been very hard for us to find him in those 24 hours anyway. On that day, you, the Brahma Heaven God Emperor, the Dragon Monarch, the Southern Sea God Emperor, and I had all arrived outside the Blue Pole Star. All of the Eastern region's realm kings surrounded us, but even though all of us were gathered there, we were unable to keep Yun Qi from running away. So why is there a need to so harshly punish the glazed light realm king who indulged in a moment of folly? A moment of folly. It was almost as if Xia Qingyu had found those words patently absurd. It could be said that the Eternal Heaven God realm devoted all of its power to hunting down Yun Qi, to the point where you even did not hesitate to use methods that your realm previously despised. Your resoluteness and determination to hunt down Yun Qi was known to all under heaven. Yet now, you are trying to show a person who hid and harbored the devil Yun Qi such mercy. The devil Yun Qi must be exterminated, the Eternal Heaven God Emperor replied. However, what's done is done. The Eastern Divine Region has already lost too much, and this old one truly cannot bear to see anyone else lose their life over this matter. Moon God Emperor, this old one knows that you are most concerned about any matter connected to the devil Yun Qi. But today, can you take it as this old one owing you a favor? Please give this old one some face and spare his life. After he finished speaking, the Eternal Heaven God Emperor let out a long sigh. That prophetic line, the carnage of the devil God, was coming closer and closer to fruition because of him. He did not dare let anyone find out about this fragment of prophecy, and he had spent nearly every instant of the last 2 years wallowing in guilt and shame. He no longer wanted to see anyone die because of this, because, at the root of it was all due to his own sin. Xia Qingyu lapsed into a deep silence, and the purple glow radiating from the purple pylon divine sword finally weakened a little. Fine. Since this is the will of the Eternal Heaven God Emperor, it would be equivalent to spitting in your face if this king continues to insist. However, if I were to just let him off like this, it will be hard for the people of the world to feel content even if they all know that it is the will of the Eternal Heaven God Emperor. Xia Qingyu's tone abruptly changed. This king can spare Shui Qianheng, but the glazed light realm must do 2 things. The first is this. Xia Qingyu continued speaking without waiting for the Eternal Heaven God Emperor to react. Shui Qianheng has committed such a grave crime that he no longer has the qualifications to continue being the glazed light realm king. This king will cripple his profound strength such that it falls below the divine master realm, and within 10 days, he must abdicate his position as realm king. Fine. The Eternal Heaven God Emperor nodded his head. He did not ask for Shui Qianheng's opinion, because Shui Qianheng did not have any right to speak in front of 2 great God Emperors. Furthermore, this result was far better than losing his life. It was at this moment that Xia Qingyu's gaze suddenly swiveled towards Shui Meiyin. If I just cripple a Shui Qianheng, I'm afraid that the glazed light realm still won't learn its lesson. Because the core of the current glazed light realm isn't Shui Qianheng, it is this goddess Meiyin. Thus, the second is that Shui Meiyin will accompany this king back to the moon god realm, and she will be imprisoned there for a millennia. For the next 1,000 years, she won't be allowed to take half a step outside of my realm. Xia Qingyu's words stunned everyone present, causing Shui Qianheng, who had already resigned himself to fate, to jerk his head upwards. You can't. This matter was my idea alone. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Shui Qianheng, why bother lying to us and yourself? Xia Qingyu said in a chilly voice. As the glazed light realm king, if not for your youngest daughter, whom you pamper and love the most, would you really risk the safety of the entire glazed light realm and secretly hide the devil Yun Qi for a whole 24 hours? I don't believe you would have, and neither does the eternal heaven god emperor. In fact, it's impossible for anyone to believe that. Indeed, anyone would be able to come to the realization that the only person who could cause Shui Qianheng, the glazed light realm king, to disregard the safety of the glazed light realm was his daughter. No, Shui Qianheng violently shook his head. He, the person who had been calm and unafraid in the face of death, now wore an expression filled with fear. Moon God Emperor, you said that you'd punish me alone just now, and that you definitely wouldn't touch anyone else. As a mighty and exalted God Emperor, how can you go back on your words? This king only said that she would not kill anyone else. I never said that I would not investigate anyone else. She glanced at Shui Meiyin. Shui Qianheng, you should be well aware that if she did not possess the only stainless divine soul in this world, if she was not the unique treasure of our eastern divine region, the very first person this king would punish would not be you, Shui Qianheng. But since it involves the devil Yun Qi, there is no way that this king can simply let her off. Xia Qingyu's eyes turned slightly. Eternal Heaven God Emperor, what do you think? The Eternal Heaven God Emperor did not meet Xia Qingyu's gaze, but he understood her meaning well enough. Xia Qingyu had already relented when it came to the matter of Shui Qianheng, and his punishment had been reduced to getting rid of his strength as a divine master. If he, the Eternal Heaven God Emperor, tried to force the issue and protect Shui Meiyin as well, this would not only enrage the Moon God Emperor, it would also cause the rest of the world to look at this matter strangely if it were to ever get out. Eternal Heaven God Emperor. Shui Qianheng did his best to move forward even though his body was still transfixed by the purple pylon divine sword. It seemed as if he did not feel any pain or care about his injuries. He looked at the Eternal Heaven God Emperor and practically begged him. Even if my humble daughter Meiyin has done wrong, it is due to her youth and inexperience. Everything, the authority to decide everything rests with this sinner Qianheng. Qianheng is willing to pay for his crimes with his life, but I beg that the Eternal Heaven God Emperor save my humble daughter. I beg for the Moon God Emperor's magnanimity. Even if this Qianheng dies, I will still be grateful for your act of mercy. He had calmly admitted his crimes and faced his own death, completely displaying the bearing and dignity of a higher realm king. But once it concerned his daughter, he had reverted into a father completely. He had become so panicked, helpless, and pathetic. Given the mercilessness of the Moon God Emperor, especially her resolute determination towards Yun Qi, he was unable to imagine just how she would treat Shui Meiyin once she had fallen into her hands. In fact, he did not even dare to imagine her treatment. Xia Qingyu did not seem the least bit moved. She coldly said, "Since this king already promised the Eternal Heaven God Emperor that I wouldn't kill you, then I definitely won't do so. Otherwise, wouldn't this king become a despicable and untrustworthy person? The Eternal Heaven God Emperor. In fact, even if you desire death now, this king will not allow it. When you hid Yun Qi back then, you should have thought of the price you would pay today." Moon God Emperor. The Eternal Heaven God Emperor suddenly spoke up. He continued in an unhurried manner. "I'll have to trouble you to exact Shui Qianheng's punishment, but how about you allow this old one to handle Shui Meiyin? Since it is imprisonment, then there should be no difference between the Moon God Realm and my Eternal Heaven God Realm, correct?" The gloom in Shui Qianheng's eyes lessened, and his eyes had now started to shine with some hope. The Eternal Heaven God Emperor was extremely fond of Shui Meiyin. This was something the entire Eastern Divine region knew. Long before the profound God Convention, the Eternal Heaven God Emperor had not hesitated to pay a personal visit to the glazed light realm just to take Shui Meiyin as his direct disciple. He had even wanted to make her his very last disciple, but Shui Qianheng had turned him down. If she was imprisoned in the Eternal Heaven God realm, even if she truly could not take a single step outside of it for the next millennia, given the righteousness of the Eternal Heaven God realm and the fondness the Eternal Heaven God Emperor displayed toward her, she definitely would not come to any harm. It looks like the Eternal Heaven God Emperor is kind and benevolent to the end. You are even so merciful and compassionate to the sinners who hid away the devil Yun Qi, Xia Qingyu said. Ultimately, their actions were a result of their natures. It was not because they desired to help the devils in any capacity, the eternal Heaven God Emperor said. Otherwise, this old one would also not be so compassionate. I am sure the Moon God Emperor is well aware of this. That is indeed true, Xianxia said. If not, why would this king even be willing to take half a step backwards? However, a mistake is still a mistake. If no price is paid for it, then wouldn't it be unjust to the people who will suffer the consequences of their wrongdoings? Ah! The eternal Heaven God Emperor let out a long sigh and said, saying anything more would be meaningless. How about imprisoning Shui Meiyin in my eternal Heaven God realm? The Moon God Emperor need not worry. This old one absolutely will not allow her to take a single step out of the eternal Heaven God realm before 1,000 years has passed. I will ensure that she reflects on her wrongdoing every day. After 1,000 years have passed, this old one will also be responsible for ensuring that she uses her powers to make up for her crimes. The eternal Heaven God Emperor knew that it was likely that the Moon God Emperor would reject his words. It could be said that everyone in the universe knew about his intense desire to take Shui Meiyin as his disciple back then. However, after she thought about it for a brief period of time, Xianxia slowly nodded her head and said these words that greatly surprised him. Since the eternal Heaven God Emperor is so insistent, then this king will give Shui Meiyin the chance to make a choice. Choice. Shui Meiyin. Xianxia slowly turned around and looked straight at the girl who had been silent the whole time. Even though hiding the devil Yun-Chi was your father's doing, you are the most important reason for his actions. Being imprisoned in a king realm for 1,000 years is the most compassionate punishment that this king can think of. Moreover, this punishment would also save your father's life. You do not have the right to reject. But right now, this king will give you the chance to choose. Xianxia's beautiful eyes grew relaxed, and her voice became gentler. The Moon God realm or the eternal Heaven God realm, I will let you choose. Of course, if you want to go to the Brahma Monarch God realm, that's acceptable as well. It seemed as if it did not matter to Xianxia which king realm in the eastern divine region carried out the punishment. As for the Star God realm, they had been quietly kicked out of the ranks of the king realms. Once she said these words, everyone present breathed a deep sigh of relief. Both Shui Qianheng and Shui Ying'er looked towards Shui Meiyin. Their eyes trembled, but they did not utter a word because this was a choice that could not be any simpler. After a brief period of silence, Shui Meiyin's gaze came into contact with Xianxia's own. They only beheld each other's eyes in this moment. Both pairs of eyes were deep and boundless. It was just that one pair of eyes looked like a dark night sky that was dotted with countless bright and resplendent stars, while the other pair was clearly a dreamy purple color, but resembled a purple abyss that held no other light. Shui Meiyin's lips softly moved, and she spoke as if she were in a dream. I will follow you to the Moon God realm. Shui Meiyin's reply stunned all three people at the same time. Shui Qianheng could not help but blurt out, Meiyin, what sort of foolishness is this? Go to eternal heaven, that is the place that's more suited for you. The eternal Heaven God Emperor was even more mystified. Could she really not see the one who was trying to protect her? The one who had desperately protected the entire glazed light realm? Shui Meiyin's gaze turned toward them, and she let out a very soft laugh as she said, The Moon God Emperor is right. No matter what reasons we had, in the eyes of the Eastern Divine Region, we did commit a grave sin. Since we were wrong, then we should make up for our crimes. Since we are paying for our crimes, if I were to choose the Eternal Heaven God realm, then Father, and the glazed light realm will have to endure countless criticisms from now on. Because once today's matter is spread to the rest of the world, everyone will know that is Grandpa Eternal Heaven who protected me. It's fine. It's absolutely fine, Shui Qianheng anxiously said. Your safety is far more important than that. Shui Meiyin shook her head and said to Xianxia, Moon God Emperor, I will return with you to the Moon God realm. I request that you honor your words and let my royal father off. How can this king go back on her words? As Xianxia said those words, the purple sword projection that pierced Shui Qianheng's body suddenly swelled up explosively, and a flash of purple light exploded in front of Shui Qianheng's chest, directly striking at his profound veins. Father, Shui Qianheng let out a heavy moan, but he did not struggle or resist. He knew that those actions would only make matters worse. He allowed that fearsome power to surge into his profound veins and mercilessly destroy the strength that had allowed him to stand proudly over all creation. Buzz, as the fantastic purple light died, the purple pylon divine sword disappeared from Xianxia's hand. Shui Qianheng slowly sank to his knees, the hole in his chest still gushing fresh blood. Shui Yingyu moved forward to support her father's body as she panickedly used profound energy to seal his wound. He had kept his life, but even if he made a full recovery, his cultivation would drop to the divine sovereign realm. Furthermore, due to the severity of his wounds, it was very possible that his cultivation would never return to the divine master realm in his lifetime. The divine sovereign realm was a realm of power that countless profound practitioners could not enter even if they spent their entire lives trying. But he was the glazed light realm king. For his cultivation to fall from the latter stages of the divine master realm to the divine sovereign realm was no different than death. Shui Yingyu's hands were shaking. Her delicate head drooped low and she did not raise it, because she was afraid that Xia Qingyu would see the rage and bloodlust violently surging in her eyes. "Let us depart." Xia Qingyu turned around and no longer looked at anyone else. Right now, Shui Meiyan's voice was very soft. It was as if she had fallen into a slumber that she had not woken up from. "Yes," Xia Qingyu replied. "All right." She gave a small nod of her head. She took one last look at her father and big sister before she said in a very soft voice, "Daddy, big sister, wait for my return." With just those words, she started to slowly walk forward. When she neared Xia Qingyu's back, Yao Yue suddenly extended a hand, and a blue barrier engulfed her and sealed her within itself. "I will not allow anyone else to take responsibility for something that has already happened." The eternal heaven god emperor's calm voice was tinged with pain. "Treat her kindly." Xia Qingyu did not say anything. After an instant had passed, she had already left into the distance with Yao Yue and Shui Meiyan, quickly vanishing from their sight. Bang! As Shui Yingyu stared into the distance absent-mindedly, Shui Qianheng limply collapsed to the ground, his entire body shaking in pain. It was just that he was not being tormented by his physical pain, he was being tormented by a pain of the heart. The moment Shui Meiyan entered the Moon God realm, her fate would be entirely under the control of the Moon God Emperor. No one would be able to even help her, much less save her. The world had long ago started to regard the current Moon God Emperor with the same dread as the Brahma Monarch Goddess. Now that Shui Meiyan had fallen into her hands, no one could imagine what the results of this would be. In fact, no one even dared to imagine it. The eternal Heaven God Emperor did not leave immediately. He looked at Shui Qianheng and sighed as he said, "Glazed Light Realm King, you do not need to worry too much. At the very least, she will definitely keep her life." Right now, the only thing that was guaranteed was Shui Meiyan's life. Other than her life, far too many things could happen over the course of 1,000 years. "The consequences that you reap today, Glazed Light Realm King, do you feel any regret?" the eternal Heaven God Emperor asked. "Regret." Shui Qianheng slowly raised his head, and there was a trace of a miserable smile on his pale face. "Why would I need to regret?" The eternal Heaven God Emperor's brow furrowed slightly as he spoke in a gentle voice. "Right now, Yunqi is in the northern divine region, a place where our hands cannot reach. As such, we have left a calamity with dreadful potential to fester. Could it be that you still do not think that you've done anything wrong?" "Calamity?" The miserable smile remained on Shui Qianheng's face. "Hasn't the greatest calamity already passed us? Could it be that there could still be a greater calamity than the Devil Emperor and the Devil Gods?" the eternal Heaven God Emperor. "Moreover, the person who rescued us from this apocalyptic calamity was none other than Yunqi." Shui Qianheng's face was masked with pain, but his voice and words were incredibly hard. "The person that I saved back then was not just my future son-in-law. Even more than that, he was my savior. He was the savior of my glazed light realm. It was only righteous, and just for me to save him, what wrong did I commit?" The eternal Heaven God Emperor's face suddenly went completely rigid. Perhaps he could not quite believe that Shui Qianheng had actually said such a thing. "Glazed Light Realm King, no matter what happened in the past, didn't you know that he had already become a devil at that time?" "Devil," Shui Qianheng muttered under his breath. "What is a devil?" "Back then, the Yunqi that I saw was the person who was called the Child of the Heavens, the one who was crowned with the prophecy of the return of the true gods. Someone who had both the legacy of the heretic god and the sky-poisoned pearl. Someone who possessed limitless possibilities. He, a person who had everything, even obtained the protection of the Devil Emperor upon her return to this world. Eternal Heaven God Emperor, have you ever thought of what anyone else that you know would have done, had that person been in Yunqi's shoes? He would have tried his best to get the Devil Emperor to stay in the primal chaos realm forever. Because that way, He would have been the supreme ruler of the universe after the Devil Emperor, and even the God Emperors and the Dragon Monarch himself would have had to bend their knees to him. The eternal Heaven God Emperor opened his mouth, but he could not make a single sound. You saw better than anyone the things that Yun-Chi did. He was the one who ultimately convinced the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor to leave the primal chaos. If not, even if the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor truly did not mean to bring disaster to this world, those returning devil gods would definitely have transformed the primal chaos realm into a purgatory. The title of God-Child Messiah that you personally conferred to him was well and truly deserved. No one will deny or forget the things that he did back then. However, the eternal Heaven God Emperor sighed as he said, "What is the use of saying all of these things right now?" Deny or forget? Shui Qianheng shook his head. The world is basically unaware of everything that he has done, so how can they deny or forget? The only things that they know are that he was the companion of the evil infant and became a sinful devil. The only reason I am saying all of these things is to ask the eternal Heaven God Emperor one thing. Shui Qianheng's body was growing weaker and weaker, and his consciousness was wavering on the brink of oblivion, but his voice had grown incredibly clear. How did someone whose heart was so kind and compassionate that he could even be called naive suddenly become a devil that all of you fear so much? That's enough. Those words had violently prodded a sensitive area for the eternal Heaven God Emperor, causing him to bellow in a low voice. His aura had clearly been thrown into disarray as well. He turned around and said, "He did indeed save the world. However, if he were to bring back all of these disasters one day, would you still take his side with such fervor?" The only thing that I know is that every single person in my glazed light realm owes him their lives. If he wants to take them, then he is welcome to them. However, Shui Qianheng suddenly laughed. I do know if that day ever does come, even if he slaughters all of the other star realms, he definitely won't kill a single person from the glazed light realm. Even if he does become a demon, in the end he is still the son-in-law that I, Shui Qianheng, have approved of. After he said those words, Shui Qianheng's consciousness scattered, and he finally fell unconscious. The eternal Heaven God Emperor was frozen in place. He raised his head and closed his eyes, his entire body gently trembling. It was only after an indeterminate amount of time had passed that he finally left into the distance. However, he did not head in the direction that the eternal Heaven God realm lay. Light realm hiding the devil Yun-Chi and being punished for it by the Moon God realm and the eternal Heaven God realm spread quickly, causing a huge commotion in the eastern divine region, one that lasted a long time. After the 3,000 years spent in the eternal Heaven divine realm, the glazed light realm gained a mid-stage divine master in Shui Ying'er and a miracle girl in Shui Meiyan. The spotlight on them shone brighter than all the other upper star realms, and in the eyes of many people, the glazed light realm had already replaced the Holy Eve's realm as the head of the upper star realms. But today, the two people that formed the core of the glazed light realm, Shui Qianheng, had been crippled, and Shui Meiyan had been imprisoned. In addition to this, they were all saddled with a crime that could not be washed away. The reputation of the glazed light realm, which had been like a blazing midday sun, had now undoubtedly plummeted to the bottom. Furthermore, the entire world knew that if it was not for the intercession of the eternal Heaven God Emperor, Shui Qianheng would not have even been able to keep his life. 9 days later, Shui Qianheng had quietly stepped down as the glazed light realm king, and his position was transferred to his eldest daughter, Shui Ying'er. This was supposed to be a huge event that would shake the entire eastern divine region, an event that all of the realms would have come to celebrate. But now, the glazed light realm did it under a blanket of complete silence. They did not hold a grand ceremony or invite any guests. As for what Shui Meiyan's fate would be over the course of the next millennia, no one could know or predict it. God realm of absolute beginning. It was a pale white world, a world that seemed to be eternally covered in a layer of gray ash. There were explosions and tearing sounds, and at the end there were deep and sorrowful wails of despair. 3 huge beasts that towered over 3,000 meters simultaneously collapsed, causing the ground to sway and shake. Qianhai Ying'er's figure appeared amidst the slowly descending gray dust. Her flexible sword flew out of her hands, cutting apart the bodies of the 3 gigantic beasts. She retrieved their perfectly intact, profound cores and threw them toward Yun-Chi. Yun-Chi sat cross-legged in the middle of some ruins. His eyes were closed, and his aura was calm and regular, and he was completely unresponsive to his surroundings. He had already stayed in this state for 7 days. The God realm of absolute beginning was said to be the only small world that had not collapsed from the beginning of the primal chaos until now. Furthermore, there was a rumor that said that this small world was actually even more vast than the God realm or the primal chaos dimension itself. Its aura was completely different from the outside world. All of the living creatures that dwelled within it, whether it was the flowers and vegetation, or the birds, insects, fish, and beasts, they were all different from the outside world. To the knowledge of the world, the God realm of absolute beginning was a small world that belonged to the primal chaos realm. However, anyone who entered this place would discover that it was completely different from pocket worlds they were familiar with. Rather, it resembled another gigantic world that was independent and separate from the primal chaos. Furthermore, its existence actually seemed to be on a higher level than the primal chaos realm. This was because those profound practitioners who knew of the existence of the God realm of absolute beginning understood just how dangerous it was. Even though its upper limits were the same as the God realm, the pinnacle of the Divine Master realm, its floor was dreadfully high. Being at the Divine Sovereign realm was the minimum requirement to step into the God realm of absolute beginning. And if a Divine Master were to delve into its depths, even they would be taking greater and greater risks. In the million-year history of the God realm, there were two common causes of death for Divine Masters, existences who stood at the peak of the profound way and were extremely hard to kill. Besides those who expired of old age, their most common cause of death was dying inside the God realm of absolute beginning. After she exterminated the profound beasts who had approached them, Ying'er returned to Xianxia's side, but she did not continue to cultivate. Instead, she silently stared at his current calm appearance. The main reason they had entered the God realm of absolute beginning a year ago was because they had been forced to do so. They definitely could not take the risk of falling into the hands of the soul-stealing realm or the Burning Moon King realm. The risks and resources found in the God realm of absolute beginning far exceeded that of any other location. In the months since they came to this place, as they killed more and more profound beasts found in the God realm of absolute beginning, another frighteningly bizarre ability had suddenly manifested itself in Xianxia's body. After he had obtained the ability to directly absorb the power contained within profound crystals, he found that he could also directly absorb the power found within the profound cores they had obtained from the profound beasts of absolute beginning, just like he could profound crystals. In fact, he could directly convert them into his power in exactly the same fashion. At the start, it was still rather difficult, but after he did this for 2 months, the process became as familiar and easy as absorbing profound crystals. This bizarre ability of Xianxia's was completely inconceivable to Ying'er, and Xianxia had not uttered a word to her about it either. From the profound crystals that were formed from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to the profound cores that formed within the bodies of profound beasts, it appeared that the limits of this bizarre ability did not merely extend to these things. She was unable to imagine just what sort of terrifying things it would do in the future. In fact, a terrifying thought had flashed through her mind more than once. What if he was able to directly steal away the cultivation of other profound practitioners in the future? They had not gone into the depths of the God realm of absolute beginning, but it was already littered with divine king and divine sovereign profound beasts. Furthermore, the profound cores found within profound beasts were the same sort of existence as a human being's profound veins. The profound energy found within them was no ordinary profound energy. Furthermore, it was also the power source of these strong profound beasts, so it was on a completely different level than the spiritual energy contained within profound crystals. He had used up most of the profound crystals they had plundered from the Thousand Desolation Divine Sect initially, and absorbing the power of profound cores had become as easy for him as breathing. As a result, even though Xianxia did not cultivate in any regular manner, his profound strength was dramatically increasing. When they had first arrived in the God realm of absolute beginning, he had only just entered the Divine Sovereign realm, but now he had already reached the 4th level of the Divine Sovereign realm. Every time a person raised their level in the Divine Sovereign realm, it was undoubtedly as hard as scaling the heavens. It not only required a vast amount of resources, but it also required a genius profound practitioner to exhaust all of their efforts for the next 1,000 or even 10,000 years. However, within the short span of a year, Xianxia had, without any proper cultivation whatsoever, leapt past 3 of these heavenly walls consecutively. It was simply a pity that the only person who had witnessed these shocking miracles was Ying'er. He had not wasted any effort cultivating the profound way, because in this 1 year, Xianxia had spent all of his time and effort cultivating the eternal calamity of darkness. Furthermore, with the existence of an excellent incubator like Ying'er, the speed at which his proficiency in the eternal calamity of darkness increased had exceeded Xianxia's own expectations. At this moment, his eyes suddenly opened, and his gaze met with Ying'er's own. 7 days. This had been the longest period of meditation he had achieved since he had entered the God realm of absolute beginning. In this extremely dangerous place, even someone as strong as a God Emperor would not dare to meditate alone in this place. The instant his eyes opened, a deep and profound black light suddenly flashed in the middle of his eyes. This black profound light was all too common to the devils. However, this profound light shot straight through Ying'er's eyes and penetrated her soul, causing her heart and profound veins to violently shake. This was, "You suddenly went into hibernation for such a long period of time. It looks like you've achieved some sort of big breakthrough," Ying'er said. Even amidst her great shock, her heart was still filled with great expectation. Xianxia slowly raised a hand. He stared at his own palm as he muttered in a low voice, "Finally, the process of merging with the devil blood is already half complete." "Devil blood?" Ying'er's eyes faintly narrowed. "What else?" "The process of merging the devil blood occurred when their bodies were connected. So it was obviously not possible that Xianxia had suddenly started meditating for 7 days because of this alone." A bizarre smile suddenly appeared on Xianxia's face as he stretched out his arm towards Ying'er, his fingers slowly curling up. All of a sudden, Ying'er's entire body started to violently shake. Her darkness profound energy had actually started to toss and turn on its own as it was suddenly released from her body. The shock that Ying'er received was no ordinary shock. Her face suddenly changed, and she swiftly started to suppress her profound energy, which had started vibrating for no reason whatsoever. She could very clearly feel her darkness profound energy actually being controlled by a will that had come from somewhere else. It was as if an invisible hand was manipulating her profound energy. Xianxia lowered his arm and the black light in his eyes disappeared. It was only then that the feeling of being controlled by someone else disappeared. Ying'er retreated 2 steps, her golden eyes glaring at Xianxia. Given her knowledge of the profound way, those short few breaths had caused her jade face to be covered with fine beads of sweat. "This was the ability you spoke about previously, the Devil Emperor power that would allow you to control all of the devils within the northern divine region." Ying'er spoke in an abnormally languid voice. A long time ago, Xianxia had told her that once he had cultivated the eternal calamity of darkness, every living being that cultivated darkness profound energy would become his tool. She had never doubted his words, because this was a power that had come from the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor. But now that she had personally experienced it, she could not suppress the shock and fear in her heart, no matter how hard she tried. He was actually able to directly control someone else's darkness profound energy. Such a thing actually existed in this world. "No, it still isn't enough. It's far from being enough," Xianxia said in a low voice. "Currently, I've only just managed to step into the middle stages of the eternal calamity of darkness. I'm still very far away from successfully cultivating it and perfecting my control over it." "Right now, to what extent can you interfere with someone else's darkness profound energy?" Ying'er asked. Her current cultivation had been restored to the 4th level of the Divine Master Realm by Xianxia, yet her power had been so easily and violently influenced by him. And this level of interference was achieved by him just starting to reach the middle stages of the eternal calamity of darkness. "What I showed you just now should be my current limit," Xianxia said in a coldly calm voice. "This level of power still does not give me the right to cooperate with the Devil Queen as an equal. However," his gaze darkened slightly, "at about this time next year should be the right time for that." "No, there's no need to wait for next year," Ying'er said after she thought about it for a moment. "From today onward, you can cultivate your eternal calamity of darkness using my body whenever you want. I think that given your capability, achieving your desired level of proficiency should only take." Ying'er's voice suddenly stilled as her head swiveled toward the south. "There are people approaching, and this aura belongs to someone from the eternal heaven," Xianxia said, his voice extremely deep and heavy. The eternal heaven god realm, the place that he had held the utmost respect for back then. But now those 4 words were stained in boundless malice and hatred inside his heart. Two people. Ying'er released her spiritual perception as she continued. Kui, the head of the Eternal Heaven Adjudicators, the main host of the profound God convention that you participated in. The other person is MN. Her eyebrows knitted together, as if she was wondering why this person would come to this place. The Eternal Heaven Crown Prince, Xianxia. Yunqi uttered the name of that aura's owner with utmost confidence. Honorable Kui and the Eternal Heaven Crown Prince. Both of these people had actually shown up in the God realm of absolute beginning. Let's go, Ying'er said with unparalleled decisiveness. Change your aura, Yunqi said. Ying'er's eyebrows knitted together ferociously. What do you want to do? Even though Xianxia is a useless piece of trash, he is still the Eternal Heaven Crown Prince who has been officially appointed by the Eternal Heaven God Emperor. If he is going to come to a place like this, it's impossible that he only has Kui protecting him. It is very likely that there are guardians accompanying him. Yunqi stood up and casually waved a hand over his face, changing his face into a completely foreign one. The wind element around him silently swirled as little eddies of air occasionally formed around him. As he smoothed his features, his face no longer looked gloomy and cold. Instead, he looked completely calm, and even his gaze was filled with a warmth that induced good feelings from others. Ying'er stretched out a hand to grab Yunqi's arm tightly. What exactly are you about to do? Now isn't the time you'd better restrain yourself. Restrain myself? Yunqi barked out an exceptionally cold and dreadful laugh. Do you know who he is? He is the Eternal Heaven God Emperor's most beloved son. His son, Ying'er. He is so close to me right now, how can I possibly hold myself back? Why would I even want to hold myself back? What will you accomplish by killing him? Ying'er's hand was still firmly latched onto Yunqi's arm, taking such a great risk to vent a moment of hatred. Is it truly worth it? Kill him? Yunqi was still laughing, and the already shocking grin he wore on his face actually turned even more terrifying at that moment. Why would I want to kill him? I'll even send him back to his father, that old dog Eternal Heaven, in one piece, completely safe and sound. He won't even be missing a hair on his head. He might even have a few extra things after I'm done with him. Ying'er. Forget it, do whatever you want. She had spent over 2 years by his side, so Ying'er had long since become familiar with Yunqi's temperament. Looking at his current state, she knew that she couldn't dissuade him no matter how hard she tried. Furthermore, given their ability to conceal themselves, as long as they did not force the issue and look for trouble, the risk of exposing themselves was very low. After all, no one could pierce the concealment provided by the Nai-Yuan stone. And as for Yunqi, without even mentioning his ability to perfectly change his appearance and voice, as far as everyone in the 3 divine regions knew, he did not possess the power of the storm, and there was no way his cultivation had jumped to the middle stages of the divine sovereign realm in a short 2 years. If she had not been at Yunqi's side constantly, even she would have found it impossible to believe. The aura radiating from Ying'er's body changed, and she had suppressed her aura to the same level as Yunqi's aura, the 4th level of the divine sovereign realm. Just as she was about to change the color of her hair, Yunqi suddenly said, "There's no need to change your hair, this is just about right." Ying'er. 2 figures slowly flew through the gray skies. Not only were they traveling at an extremely slow speed, they also did their best to restrain their auras. These 2 people were precisely the Eternal Heaven God Realm's honorable, Hui and their crown prince, Xianxia. Young master, even though our Lord transferred his memory of this place to you long ago, this is still the first time you've entered the God Realm of absolute beginning. This place is laden with danger, and there are many strange beasts living here. You must remember to never stray too far from my side. Hui repeated himself again. Xianxia stared into the distance as he said with a faint smile, "Royal Father asked me to come to this place to train. If I rely too much on Uncle Kui, wouldn't that be going against the purpose of coming here in the first place? Even though that is the case, the young master's safety is more important than anything else. After all, our young master has to bear the future of the Eternal Heaven and the Eastern Divine Region on his back." Hui replied. "However, even though the young master's innate talent in the profound way is excellent, you have never truly experienced danger. Your experience in actual combat is quite shallow, so this is currently the best place for you to train. Thus, during this period of time, unless your life is in danger, I will not help you no matter what happens. Does this suit the young master's purpose? It couldn't be any better." Zhou Qingchen nodded his head before he asked another question. Uncle Kui, what exactly happened to Royal Father? 2 years ago, he was still admonishing me time and again, telling me that my temperament was still too shallow and my experience was still too lacking. However, over the last 2 years, he has repeatedly expressed the desire to transfer the position of Realm King and his power to me. I am well aware that I am still very far from where my Royal Father desires me to be. Whether it is the position of Realm King or his power, I am still not qualified to inherit either of those things. However, Royal Father's intentions are becoming more and more clear, yet he has never been willing to divulge his reasons to me. A rare and vague smile appeared on Kui's stiff face. The young master's experience is indeed rather shallow and lacking, but there is no need for you to sell yourself short. If our young master wasn't good enough, why would our Lord choose you as his successor? As for our Lord's strange state, his brow faintly furrowed as is said, our Lord has behaved in an upright and righteous manner for his entire life. The things he despises the most are going against one's word and betrayal. However, when he took action against the evil infant back then, it was ultimately still a betrayal of Yunqi, and it even ended up with Yunqi exposing himself as a devil. After that, the Moon God Emperor destroyed the Blue Pole Star, killing countless living creatures, and our Lord took the guilt of those crimes upon himself. For the last few years, his heart and soul have been deeply mired by the guilt of these things. Kui let out a sigh. Perhaps our Lord has truly grown tired. Ah, Zhou Qingchen let out a sigh as well. He said he destroyed his own good name to get rid of the evil infant. He definitely did not do such a thing out of selfish intent. He protected the safety of the entire God realm in doing so, and everyone in the world praises him for it. Only Royal Father himself. The greatness and magnanimity of our Lord are unparalleled in this current age, Kui said as he looked at Zhou Qingchen. Our Lord's sacred name will be remembered for all time, and once the young master succeeds the position of Realm King, you must also inherit our Lord's will. I will, Zhou Qingchen replied. He could hear something from Kui's words, and he suddenly lapsed into a long period of silence before asking another question. Uncle Kui, Royal Father, does he truly want to transfer his power to me? Zhou Qingchen had been looking forward to this day since many years ago, and all of his hard work and effort had been for this day as well. However, this day had now come far too early and suddenly, and it left him with a perpetual sense of disbelief and loss. The aura found within the God realm of absolute beginning was unique, and its suppression of one's spiritual perception far exceeded that of the God realm. When Yunqi had first entered the God realm of absolute beginning, Xia Qingyu had informed him of this aspect. As a result, regardless of whether it was Kui or Zhou Qingchen, neither of them detected two figures slowly creeping within 3 kilometers of them. The conversation that they were having had also clearly been heard by the other party. Eternal Heaven wants to transfer his position to Zhou Qingchen. That's really strange. Ying'er was quite mystified by this revelation. The entire God realm knows that he personally got rid of the hidden threat of the evil infant, so his reputation should be at its peak. Why does he want to transfer his position to his useless son right now? Yunqi did not say anything. Kui turned around and said to Zhou Qingchen, I know that this matter has been thrust upon you in a manner that is all too sudden. Even we are still left at a loss in regards to this matter. However, it seems like our Lord has already made up his mind. Furthermore, your training is only one of the reasons we have come to the God realm of absolute beginning today. Do you know why the 2 guardians Tai Yin and Zhu Liu have also covertly come along this time? Tai Yin and Zhu Liu? Ying'er's golden brows suddenly sank. Guardians? Yunqi asked. That's right, Ying'er said. Honorable Tai Yin, the one ranked 6th among the Eternal Heaven Guardians, is a level 9 Divine Master. He has achieved great mastery over the laws of space and is very accomplished in using it. Honorable Zhu Liu, the one ranked 13th among the Eternal Heaven Guardians, is a level 8 Divine Master. Among the Guardians, he is the one who is most proficient at using the powers of space besides Tai Yin. After she finished speaking, Ying'er muttered to herself in a soft voice. As long as they don't ask for trouble and go too deep, a single Guardian would be enough to completely protect Zhou Qingchen. So why did they send out 2 of them? Since they've mobilized 2 Guardians, why did they mobilize Kui as well? You just said that these are the 2 people who are the best at using the powers of space among the Guardians, Yunqi said in a deep voice. It is very possible that their main objective isn't to protect Zhou Qingchen. Could it be that Uncle Tai Yin and Uncle Zhu Liu did not come here just to secretly protect me? Zhou Qingchen asked. Our young master's safety is paramount, but there is another important matter we must attend to, Hui said in a very soft voice as his eyes swept the surrounding area. The eternal heaven spirit will delve into the God realm of absolute beginning every once in a while. However, when our Lord sent the divine consciousness of the eternal heaven spirit into the God realm of absolute beginning half a month ago, it detected the traces of a very high-level aura. Given the sort of existence the eternal heaven pearl was, any aura that its divine consciousness would take an interest in and judge as high-level was definitely not ordinary aura. Hui slowly said, it was the aura of a divine fruit of absolute beginning. A divine fruit of absolute beginning, Zhou Qingchen immediately blurted out in shock. Even though Hui had deliberately kept his voice low, Yunqi and Qianai Ying'er heard his words loud and clear. Besides, Zhou Qingchen had shouted out those very words in shock. The two of them glanced at each other, and they both sensed each other's soul throb in that instant. The divine fruit of absolute beginning was the very object they were dreaming of. Is it truly a divine fruit of absolute beginning? Zhou Qingchen said in an incredibly excited voice. It was only when he had already started speaking that he remembered to suppress the volume of his own voice. Amen? Hui nodded his head. Actually, an important reason why the eternal heaven spirit has probed the God realm of absolute beginning with such frequency over the last 1,000 years was to search for the aura of a divine fruit of absolute beginning. The purpose of this was naturally so that we could help you achieve the most perfect God-Emperor inheritance. Finally, our Lord's magnanimity received the mercy of heaven, and we detected the aura of a divine fruit of absolute beginning half a month ago, Hui continued. If we delayed taking action by even a day, it would increase the risk of the fruit being discovered by others. This is why our Lord put this plan into action. On the surface, we are sending you into the God realm of absolute beginning to train, and 2 guardians are covertly protecting you. In reality, they are actually quietly trying to pinpoint the location of this divine fruit of absolute beginning. The few records the God realm has of the divine fruit of absolute beginning, stated that it is found in the territory of the dragons of absolute beginning. That place is extremely dangerous, and Royal Father has said that even he does not dare rashly approach that place. This is especially true whenever a divine fruit of absolute beginning is about to ripen. The aura contained within the fruit will warm a dragon's soul, so all of the dragons will be closely guarding it. Can the 2 uncles truly obtain it? Zhou Qingchen was filled with 3 parts apprehension and 7 parts excitement. Because this was the divine fruit of absolute beginning, there were countless resources that could be found in the God realm of absolute beginning, and they were all of an exceedingly high grade. However, the divine fruit of absolute beginning was considered a divine object among divine objects in the God realm of absolute beginning. It was formed from the most pure and vital spiritual energy belonging to the God realm of absolute beginning. Even though it could not equal the rare treasures that were formed from primordial energy itself, it was not far off from those treasures. In the million-year history of the God realm, the divine fruit of absolute beginning had only been harvested 6 times. This meant that it was already considered the blessing of the heavens if they could encounter one every few 100,000 years. It was such a momentous occasion that even the God Emperors themselves would be beside themselves in excitement if they heard about it, much less Zhou Qingchen. Our young master need not worry, Hui said in a rather confident voice. It isn't convenient for our Lord to personally take action, since that would definitely attract the attention of the other realms. However, Honorable Tai Yin and Honorable Zhu Liu are both extremely adept at wielding spatial divine power, so they can get near the divine fruit of absolute beginning without being detected by the dragons of absolute beginning. Even if they are surrounded by all of the dragons after they have obtained the divine fruit, they will still be able to easily escape. In the history of the God realm, the divine fruit of absolute beginning has only been harvested by any of the realms a total of 6 times. 3 of these times, it was our eternal heaven realm who managed to harvest it. When he said those words, Hui's face could not help but light up with pride. For the divine aura of the divine fruit of absolute beginning to appear again at this time, it cannot be anything but the heavens taking mercy on our Lord's magnanimity. In a mysterious way, this event also seems to be fortuitously aiding the success of our young master and our eternal heaven realm. Since the heavens have blessed us with this, then we will surely succeed. Zhou Qingchen let out a long breath and said, could it be that both of my uncles are already? Amen. Hui nodded his head. It's about time, so both Honorable Tai Yin and Honorable Zhu Liu should be close to the territory of the dragons of absolute beginning. In the distance, Yun Qi and Kaianai Ying'er frowned at the same time. Can this be considered good news or bad news? Kaianai Ying'er said. They had obtained the untamed divine marrow that the Burning Moon King Realm had hidden for 10,000 years by complete coincidence. If they could obtain the divine fruit of absolute beginning as well, they would be able to make the untamed world pellet that was said to possess the power of miracles. However, even obtaining the untamed divine marrow was a huge surprise, and something like the divine fruit of absolute beginning could not be sought after. It could only be encountered by chance. But right now, they had personally confirmed that a divine fruit of absolute beginning had been formed inside the God realm of absolute beginning. However, even if they could shake off the pursuit of the dragons of absolute beginning, existences which they definitely could not contend with right now, this divine fruit of absolute beginning had already been discovered and targeted by the eternal heaven god realm a long time ago. And now, two eternal heaven guardians who were extremely adept at using spatial power were very likely already beside that divine fruit of absolute beginning. Even though Yun Qi and Kaianai Ying'er's strength had grown at lightspeed, these were eternal heaven guardians. Even if they combined forces, they definitely would not even be able to fight against one of them, let alone two. If the guardians were to obtain the fruit, trying to snatch it from them would be nothing more than a pipe dream. Of course, this is good news, Yun Qi said in an unflustered voice. Oh, Kaianai Ying'er's beautiful eyes turned towards him. Given our current strength, even if we know the location of the divine fruit of absolute beginning, we still won't have any chance of obtaining it. However, those two great guardians are able to accomplish this feat, Yun Qi said slowly in a deep voice. Then let's allow them to work hard for us. They better not fail in their attempt to obtain it. And after that? Kaianai Ying'er's lips had started to curve up slightly. After that, won't it be all too simple? Yun Qi said as he stared at the distant Zhou Qingchen. Tell me, to people like them, these so-called righteous folk who despise all selfish desires, between a divine fruit of absolute beginning and Zhou Qingchen's life, which do you think they will value more? Yun Qi's face was impassive, but his eyes were shockingly cold and gloomy. When she looked at Yun Qi's current appearance, a smile bloomed on Kaianai Ying'er's face as she said in a soft and gentle voice, I'm really liking your current way of doing things more and more. Our Lord repeatedly warned us not to tell the young master of the matter regarding the divine fruit of absolute beginning. But now that I think about it, doing so will be able to ease the hesitation in the young master's heart, Hui said. As the head of the adjudicators, he had always been someone who played it by the book, even to the point of cutting off his own emotions. Perhaps it was only in front of Zhou Qingchen that he found himself smiling every now and then. I thank Uncle Hui for letting me know. However, no matter what happens with the divine fruit of absolute beginning, I definitely won't disappoint the expectations of my royal father and all of my uncles. Zhou Qingchen gave an easygoing smile as he flew downwards and entered an even deeper part of the god realm of absolute beginning. Honorable Hui could sense a thick fighting spirit and desire emanating from Zhou Qingchen's body. It was clear that he was determined to give the eternal heaven god emperor a pleasant surprise at the end of his training. He warned him from afar. Young master, do not descend further than 15,000 kilometers. Wherever there are strange plants and spiritual treasures, there will also be ancient profound beasts who have made that area their territory. You must be careful. Just as Hui was warning Zhou Qingchen, a huge shadow that was over 300 meters long suddenly soared out of the ancient gray forest. Its wings generated millions of wind blades that tore straight at Zhou Qingchen. Astonishingly enough, that gigantic shadow was a wild bird with the head of a phoenix. The wild beasts that lived in the god realm of absolute beginning rarely fought amongst themselves, and it seemed to be because the world they lived in was different from the outside world. However, they were quite sensitive to auras that came from the outside, and the moment they encountered such an aura, they would often directly launch attacks at these interlopers. However, Hui did not take action despite seeing this scene unfold in front of him. Zhou Qingchen possessed the cultivation of a level 6 divine sovereign, so he would not meet with any life-threatening danger in this outer region of the god realm of absolute beginning. Zhou Qingchen glanced to the side. Even though he was facing this wild bird which had suddenly launched an attack against him, his gaze was completely calm. He did not look like he was even going to defend himself, and from an outsider's perspective, it looked like he did not have time to react to this attack. However, it was at this moment that a loud roar rang in the air, accompanied by a violently howling storm. Countless ancient trees were uprooted and tossed into the air by this storm. The wild bird which had been charging toward Zhou Qingchen suddenly changed the trajectory of its headlong rush, and its body was flipped over. In the next instant, a figure soared into the sky, and the storm grew even more violent. With a heavy ring, the dreadful storm snapped one of the wild bird's wings like a twig. The wild bird gave a shrill cry as it struggled to escape the storm. However, it did not retaliate in anger once it broke free of the storm. Instead, it desperately fled into distance. The wind swirling around the newly appeared person died down. He did not chase after the bird. Instead, he faced Zhou Qingchen and gave a nod of his head as he said, "Hello, brother." This sort of wild bird likes to launch sneak attacks because the aura its body radiates is very similar to the surrounding area. It is better to be careful around here. Zhou Qingchen replied with a faint smile, "Brother, I thank you for your help." The other party was slightly taken aback when he saw Zhou Qingchen's calm and tranquil smile. After that, he laughed as he said, "It looks like this humble one was being a busybody. Farewell." As he spoke, a woman gracefully arrived at his side. The woman's long, light golden hair fell straight to her hips. It looked like a luxurious cascade of liquid gold. She wore a rather large mask that was shaped like phoenix wings over her face. The mask was a pure icy blue color, but the icy light that glinted off it looked dull and washed out compared to the glow of her jade skin. Zhou Qingchen's gaze violently froze. "Let's go." Yunqi and Ying'er prepared to leave. "Wait a moment." Zhou Qingchen suddenly spoke just as Yunqi was turning around. Even though it was not obvious, his voice lost some of its previous calm elegance, and it had gained an unnatural urgency. Yunqi's gaze turned back toward him as he said, "Does this esteemed one have anything to say to me?" Zhou Qingchen took a step forward. After that, he realized that he had lost some of his composure, and he forcefully restrained his gaze. He gave Yunqi a small bow as he said, "Brother, you magnanimously lent your help to a stranger even though we met by chance in this dangerous place. For that, this humble one is deeply grateful. Brother seems to be rather familiar with this place, but this is this humble one's first time here, so every step fills me with apprehension. If you do not mind, I don't know if the two of you would want to journey with me and we can watch each other's backs." In the distance, Kahui's forehead faintly wrinkled up. The profound energy that radiated from these two people was at the fourth level of the Divine Sovereign realm. So even if they harbored any ulterior motives, they posed no threat to Zhou Qingchen. What had puzzled and astonished Kahui was this. Given Zhou Qingchen's identity and temperament coupled with the determination he had shown toward this training mission, why had he suddenly suggested traveling with these two strangers of unknown origins? Even though the other party had taken the initiative to help him, the most complicated thing in this world was the human heart. So they definitely could not determine whether he was a kind person based on that action alone. And there was no way that Zhou Qingchen did not know that as well. At this moment, Kui's gaze suddenly froze when it settled upon that golden-haired woman. After that, he averted his gaze and let out a silent sigh. "Ah, so that's why." This hesitation appeared on Yunqi's face. "The two of you can rest easy." Zhou Qingchen wore a faint smile on his face, but he suddenly released his profound energy, immediately causing the space around him to start swirling slowly. "Even though this humble one is unfamiliar with this place, I definitely won't drag the two of you down. This humble one will only take a third of any opportunities we manage to cut down. I won't be greedy for more." Zhou Qingchen was someone who very easily gave other people a favorable impression of himself. When Yunqi had met him for the first time, this was something that stood out to him. His genteel elegance and his modest and well-mannered behavior made it hard for others to believe that he was the son of a god-emperor. Perhaps, among all the king realms in the god realm, only a prince of the eternal heaven god realm would behave in such a manner. Yunqi shot Ying'er a look. After that, he pondered the matter briefly before saying, "All right, one more companion means one more helping hand and less risk. As such, I ask that you give us lots of guidance." For the other party to be proactive was a completely different notion from him being proactive. Furthermore, trying to get the eternal heaven-crowned prince, whose status was above the heavens, to proactively approach two divine sovereigns he had just met by coincidence, two divine sovereigns of completely unknown origins, was something that should have been impossible. Yet it had been realized all too easily by Yunqi at this precise moment. And there was only one reason for that, Ying'er. More accurately speaking, it was the golden hair and celestial figure which greatly resembled Ying'er's own. That one glance had shaken him to the depths of his soul. Even though he was the world-renowned eternal heaven-crowned prince, the future eternal heaven god emperor, someone whose exalted status was unmatched amongst his male peers. There was one person that this eternal heaven-crowned prince adored, to the point where he became as pathetic as dust when it came to her. The Brahma monarch goddess had countless admirers spread out amongst the 3 divine regions, but when it came to status and future prospects, Zhou Qingchen could be counted as one of the admirers who could match up to her. However, due to the limitations of the eternal heaven god realm's method of inheritance, even though Zhou Qingchen was their crown prince, he could only fully complete his divine power inheritance after Zhou Xuzi abdicated his position as the eternal heaven god emperor. Thus, even though his innate talent was peerless, given his status as a divine sovereign, when he was faced with Ying'er's cultivation, appearance, divine beauty, and fame, he became so ashamed of himself that even his breathing would become disordered. As the eternal heaven-crowned prince, he had many more opportunities to see Ying'er than others, but he had only ever dared to gaze at her from afar. He had not dared to even approach her, much less take the initiative to speak to her. Perhaps no one would be able to believe that the grand eternal heaven-crowned prince, the future eternal heaven god emperor, would actually act in such a pathetic manner in front of a woman. However, Ying'er's impression of Zhou Qingchen was summed up in 5 simple words: the trash of eternal heaven. Given her temperament and her way of doing things, the place she despised the most was the eternal heaven god realm, which always clung to righteousness, and which took the law and order of the Eastern divine region as their personal responsibility. The people she despised the most in this world were toothless and genteel people like Zhou Qingchen, who would scramble to fulfill her every desire. "I was just wondering, what's your name and where you are from?" The 3 of them would be traveling together, so Zhou Qingchen asked that question out of courtesy. However, the answer did not seem to be important to him at all. "This humble one is Ling Yun, and I am from the Southern Divine Region's Wind Song Sacred Realm," Yun-Chi said in a very easygoing manner. "The Wind Song Sacred Realm?" Astonishment appeared on Zhou Qingchen's face. "Oh, could it be that brother has heard of it?" Yun-Chi said as he looked to the side. "This is indeed a happy accident," Zhou Qingchen said with a faint smile. "Back when I was traveling the Southern Divine Region by myself, I stayed in the Wind Song Sacred Realm for a few days. The wind element in that place was so active that it took my breath away, so it left a fairly deep impression on me. It's no wonder that brother Ling Yun possesses such mastery over the power of the storm." "Not at all," Yun-Chi replied modestly. "If we were to compare our cultivations, this humble one is far inferior to you, esteemed one. When I moved hastily just now, the esteemed one definitely must have laughed at me." "Ha ha ha!" Zhou Qingchen started laughing as well. The God realm of absolute beginning is still the most dangerous place in the universe. It is hard to even take care of yourself in this place. Very few people would be able to act so righteously as to help a stranger in need. It's an act that truly caused me to gasp in admiration. This humble one's name is Chen Qing, and I was born in the Eastern Divine Region. This is the first time I've entered the God realm of absolute beginning, so I ask that 2 of you look after me." After he finished speaking, Zhou Qingchen very naturally looked to the side and shot a glance toward Ying'er. "I wonder how I may address this lady. This is this humble one's junior sister, Ling Qianying. She very seldom goes out into the world, so she isn't good with words. I hope that you aren't offended by this," Yun-Chi said. "Ying." Zhou Qingchen was stunned by those words, and he was left at a momentary loss. "Oh," puzzlement appeared on Yun-Chi's face. Zhou Qingchen came back to his senses, and he hurriedly laughed as he said, "High waves and a dream of clouds, 1,000 shadows paint a most beautiful picture. They are truly beautiful names, so my mind could not help but wander a little. When I think about it, the person who is worthy of this name is definitely a peerless beauty." "Brother Chen's praise is a little over the top," Yun-Chi said as he smiled. "Qianying is very unused to showing her face to other people, so I hope that Brother Chen does not take offense at it." "I'm not offended at all," Zhou Qingchen replied with a faint smile, but a trace of disappointment flashed in the depths of his eyes. Kui silently observed everything from a distant location. This was supposed to be Zhou Qingchen's personal training journey in the God realm of absolute beginning, so he would not interfere unless he had no other choice. He also would not give him any reminders or interfere with any of his decisions. He had originally believed that Zhou Qingchen would escape this devilish obstacle when Kaianai Ying'er had become Yun Qi's slave and been marked with a lifetime's worth of shame. After that, she betrayed the Brahma monarch god realm and fled from it, her fate unknown. Hui had thought that Zhou Qingchen would finally be free from this trap by then, but from what he saw today, it looked like he was as deeply mired as he had ever been. In the depths of the god realm of absolute beginning, just like Hui had said, Honorable Tai Yin and Honorable Zhu Liu had already descended into the depths of the god realm of absolute beginning, and they were very close to the territory of the dragons of absolute beginning. The dragons of absolute beginning were the most ancient and strongest dragon clan in the god realm of absolute beginning. Perhaps it was because their ability to reproduce was limited, but there were not many dragons of absolute beginning in existence. In fact, their numbers paled in comparison to the Western Divine Region's Dragon God clan. However, any single dragon of absolute beginning, even if it was just a wormling, could display a peerlessly powerful and earth-shaking draconic might. This was also the reason that the God realm could only obtain a divine fruit of absolute beginning once every few 100,000 years. Even to the king realms themselves, barging into the territory of the dragons of absolute beginning and stealing the divine object that they guarded was a gamble that could cost them their lives. However, even though Tai Yin and Zhu Liu formed a party of just two, they were entering this place with quite a bit of confidence. Because they were eternal heaven guardians, because they possessed mighty spatial powers. In the history of the God realm, the various realms that comprised the God realm had only harvested 6 divine fruits of absolute beginning, and half of them had been obtained by the eternal heaven God realm. They had accomplished this by relying on their mastery over space, a power unique to their realm. The territory of the dragons of absolute beginning lay in front of them. Even though it was still quite far away from their location, the shocking draconic might was already pressing against their hearts and souls. It felt as if this draconic might had engulfed the entire gray-white land around them. As the supreme ruler of every living being, a dragon roar acted as a verbal command to all of the living creatures in the vast space that surrounded the dragons of absolute beginning. If a mighty mid-stage divine master were to enter this place, they would be considered lucky if they escaped with their life. The two of them restrained their auras as best as they could as they silently advanced. However, at a certain point in time, their bodies suddenly froze at the same time. It was an incomparably pure no. It was a strange kind of aura that could not be described with any words. It completely transcended the knowledge of these two great guardians. It was as if it had come from some illusory dreamscape or a divine realm that had long since ceased to exist. That aura spread throughout the bodies of the two guardians in a single instant. The two great guardians possessed a divine master power that allowed them to isolate any foreign energy, but this power did not even seem to exist in front of this aura. Their senses suddenly became incredibly clear, and their spiritual perception, which had been suppressed by the aura radiating from the God realm of absolute beginning, instantly cleared up. They felt as if their bodies were being bathed in some sort of mysterious and unfathomable spring. The two guardians could not help but suck in a breath at the same time. After that, they glanced at each other and saw the deep excitement in each other's eyes. "This is the divine aura of the divine fruit of absolute beginning," Tai Yin exclaimed in a deep voice. As one of the guardians, he had only ever heard of the divine fruit of absolute beginning. He had never actually seen one before. However, this aura which did not seem like it should exist in this universe, instantly allowed him to understand why it had been crowned with the title of divine fruit. "We can't be mistaken," Zhu Liu said with much excitement. Right now, they had yet to truly approach the territory of the dragons of absolute beginning. They were so far away from the divine fruit of absolute beginning, but its aura was already so overwhelming. They were unable to imagine just what sort of miracle they would witness once they had drawn near to it, and what sort of miracle would occur when it had been consumed. "It truly is a divine fruit. Its aura alone is worthy of the word divine," Honorable Zhu Liu said. "The young master's future is secured if we can obtain it. Our Lord himself said that this divine fruit of absolute beginning is very close to full maturity. The divine energy it contains may even exceed the 3 fruits our eternal heaven obtained in the past," Honorable Tai Yin said with excitement in his eyes. "The young master's future is eternal heaven's future. Failure isn't an option. There is no reason we should fail," Honorable Zhu Liu declared. Since the eternal heaven god realm wasn't aiming to fight a war against the dragons of absolute beginning, greater numbers absolutely wasn't the way to go here. The reason they were the best candidates to retrieve the divine fruit was because they were incredibly accomplished in the art of space, and they had brought with them the realm's greatest spatial artifacts. With their knowledge of the dragon's territory, the eternal heaven spirit's aura tracking, and their ancestors' experiences in retrieving the divine fruit, there was no reason they should fail in their endeavor. The duo tried their best to suppress their aura before approaching the dragon's territory. The closer they approached, the greater the divine fruit of absolute beginning affected their bodies and souls. All right, this is it. Honorable Tai Yin stopped in his tracks and said, "The divine aura of the divine fruit will nourish the body and soul of a dragon by a lot. As a result, their spiritual senses will be a lot stronger than normal. We cannot get any closer than this." "This distance is enough," Honorable Zhu Liu said. The duo stood still and pushed out their palms together. A gray-white colored cauldron immediately appeared in front of them. The cauldron's name was Great Void. It was the strongest spatial profound artifact not just in the eternal heaven god realm, but the entire eastern divine region. Even the super-large transdimensional formation, the eternal heaven god realm, had built to teleport directly to the edge of the primal chaos, used it as its core. The two of them pressed their hands against the cauldron at the same time. A moment of silence later, a weak white light rose from the surface of the cauldron and spread into a small-sized spatial profound formation. The two guardians gathered all of their concentration and circulated the laws of space to the absolute limit. They didn't forget to keep the outgoing aura to a minimum either. A long time later, the spatial profound formation surrounding the cauldron slowly solidified. Although it looked very small and weak on the surface, the fact that it was the culmination of power of two guardians and the Great Void Cauldron proved that it was no ordinary spatial profound formation. "All right," Honorable Tai Yin opened his eyes and said in a low tone, "We've successfully pinpointed the orientation and position. Now it's all up to fate. Our Lord once said that the position provided by the eternal heaven spirit wouldn't deviate more than 10 kilometers. If the heavens are truly with us, a deviation of 10 kilometers will not be a problem," Honorable Zhu Liu said. "I'll control the formation while you take the fruit. Remember, the fruit is our only goal." Their gazes grew firm as they chanted something and took a step forward at the same time. They vanished alongside the cauldron the moment they entered the profound formation. They were in the god realm of absolute beginning. The act of teleporting was difficult enough already, much less teleporting to a specific location. However, the teleportation was completed perfectly due to the power of two guardians and the Great Void Cauldron. The scene before their eyes changed, and the world was still gray-white in color. However, the sudden change in aura made them feel like they had teleported into a completely different world. An infinite amount of draconic pressure crashed down on them. It was so incredibly heavy and ancient that it was as if it came from the ancient past. At the same time, they sensed a divine aura so rich it was as if it hailed from a distant god realm. The guardians got a surprise so pleasant that their blood stopped circulating for an instant. The source of the aura was very close. 300 meters. The fruit was actually just 300 meters away from them. To a powerful guardian, this distance was almost the same as an arm's length. It was the best-case scenario which they had only envisioned in their dreams. However, they didn't waste even a single moment to express their excitement or look at their surroundings. Honorable Zhu Liu finally unleashed his hidden energy and charged toward the source of the divine aura like lightning. Behind him, Honorable Tai Yin also unleashed his profound energy to sustain the spatial profound formation beneath his feet. A ray of red light entered his pupils at this exact moment. It was a red-colored fruit that was only as big a fingernail. However, it glowed like a star that dyed most of its surroundings blood red. Hordes of giant, gray dragons could be seen sitting around the fruit and bathing in its rich aura. The dragons of absolute beginning viewed the formation of every divine fruit of absolute beginning as a heavenly miracle. Not only could its aura purify a dragon's aura and soul, it had the potential to wholly change a dragon. Honorable Zhu Liu had appeared out of nowhere, and he had pounced toward the divine fruit of absolute beginning at the soonest opportunity. Naturally, the dragons weren't able to react in time. Even before the first dragon could angrily roar, Honorable Zhu Liu had already passed through them and made a grab for the fruit. Since the dragons wished to bathe in the divine fruit's aura, no barriers were erected around it as a matter of course. That was why Honorable Zhu Liu was able to close in on the divine fruit of absolute beginning completely unobstructed. If he succeeded, his connection to the great void cauldron would teleport him back to the transdimensional formation instantly. Then he would escape with Honorable Tai Yin. 30 meters, 15 meters, 9 meters, 3 meters. He was 1/1000th of a second away from succeeding. Then a dragon's roar exploded beside his ears and inside his soul. As an eternal heaven guardian, Honorable Zhu Liu's experience and knowledge were far superior to the common profound practitioner. However, he had no doubt that the roar ringing in his soul was the most terrifying dragon roar he had ever heard in his life. The roar caused him to black out and drop toward the ground. His hand grabbed only air as a result. An even more terrifying result had happened alongside his blunder. The dragon roar had shaken his soul and destroyed his connection to the great void cauldron. Behind Honorable Zhu Liu, Honorable Tai Yin paled in shock, seeing the impossible happening right before his eyes. When he looked up toward the dragon that blocked the sun itself, he immediately felt like his pupils were pierced by needles. He blurted out in shivering fear, The Dragon Emperor of Absolute Beginning." The Dragon Emperor of Absolute Beginning was the emperor of his race. He was also the strongest dragon in the entire god realm of Absolute Beginning. The fact that he was called an emperor should ring alarm bells in anyone's head. As its title might suggest, it was almost as strong as a god emperor. Of course, Honorable Tai Yin and Honorable Zhu Liu had accounted for the possibility of encountering the Dragon Emperor of Absolute Beginning and made appropriate preparations. That was why they had used their strongest spatial technique to teleport themselves obscenely close to the divine fruit of Absolute Beginning. The Dragon Emperor might be incredibly powerful, but not even he could react toward their sudden ambush in time. However, not only was the Dragon Emperor waiting right next to the divine fruit of Absolute Beginning, it had let out a soul-shaking roar in that critical moment that was shorter than even a flash. It was almost as if he knew they were coming and was waiting for this exact moment. But that just couldn't be possible, could it? Both the teleportation and the ambush had happened in only an instant, and they had made sure to begin their preparations far enough from the dragon's domain. It was a fact that none of the dragons had detected them. After Honorable Zhu Liu had collapsed toward the ground, angry, draconic roars started appearing from every direction. Space and even the blue sky above their heads started shaking as countless dragons focused their auras on the thieves, especially Honorable Zhu Liu, who was the closest person to the fruit. "Run!" The shout pierced through Honorable Zhu Liu and woke him from his daze. Although the divine fruit of Absolute Beginning was right in front of him, the guardian knew that he had missed his best, if not his only, chance to steal the fruit. Even if he were to make a second attempt, it was entirely possible that he would fail and lose his life because of it, even if he was a guardian of the eternal heaven god realm. Honorable Zhu Liu let out a growl before summoning a strange, glowing fan into his hand. When the fan was opened, the draconic auras holding him in place like real ropes instantly broke off from his body. He had no intentions of fighting whatsoever, and he gathered his spatial powers quickly to teleport back to Honorable Tai Yin. However, a draconic might that felt like the sky itself froze all space within the area. Honorable Zhu Liu didn't even travel 90 meters before he was stopped dead in his tracks. This teleportation was completely fueled by Honorable Zhu Liu's own spatial energy, not a profound artifact. Unfortunately, a huge amount of spatial energy was required to teleport even a short distance in the god realm of Absolute Beginning. The forceful freezing of space caused the spatial energy within the area to rapidly collapse. Honorable Zhu Liu trembled all over and nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. Unfortunately for him, he didn't even have the time to take a breather. The Dragon Emperor of Absolute Beginning was already swooping down on him. None of the dragons were moving toward Honorable Zhu Liu. In fact, they were moving away from him. It was because the Dragon Emperor was taking matters into his own claws. Attempting to interfere would only be an affront toward their emperor. The might of the Dragon Emperor was terrible and deadly. The second Honorable Zhu Liu was caught by the pressure. He immediately felt like his internal organs were wrung like a towel, of course. He knew of the Dragon Emperor of Absolute Beginning, but he never thought that he would run into him the second he teleported into their territory. They were supposed to be the ambushers who took the dragons by surprise, but they were the ones who got surprised by the Dragon Emperor's roar and had their initiative robbed from them instead. The Dragon Emperor of Absolute Beginning was not an opponent they could fight just by working together, and to lose the initiative right in front of him. They might be the guardians of eternal heaven god realm, but even they weren't immune to death. A giant claw descended from the sky, and absolutely everything beneath its claw was annihilated to dust. The divine fruit of Absolute Beginning was the only thing that continued to glow quietly and unharmed despite how close the destruction was taking place. Boom! Honorable Zhu Liu had no choice but to raise his hands and bear the full brunt directly. He was barely able to stop it from crushing it outright, but couldn't stop vomiting blood after the destructive blast of energy. He lifted his head abruptly and shouted hoarsely, "Leave me and run!" His connection to the great void cauldron was severed, the Dragon Emperor was on him, and his profound energy was in chaos. This was without mentioning the fact that he was currently surrounded by countless other dragons. He knew that there was little to no chance he was escaping today. On the other hand, Honorable Tai Yin was still inside the profound formation and could teleport away at any moment. If his colleague tried to save him, this disaster might claim his life as well. "Zhu Liu!" Honorable Tai Yin shouted and hesitated for an instant. Then he moved out of the profound formation, charged forward, and threw a giant hand seal straight at the dragon claw. The hand seal successfully threw the Dragon Emperor's claw away from Honorable Zhu Liu. Both guardians immediately took off in different directions. Honorable Zhu Liu was finally able to take a breather after escaping the Dragon Emperor's suppression. Again, he gathered his power and tried to circulate the spatial laws, but just the thought entered his mind, the terrible shadow of a blue wolf suddenly appeared in his soul. He instantly felt chilled to the very bones. He turned around with difficulty, and the image of a giant wolf abruptly appeared above his head. Its gaping mouth was several thousand meters wide, and its teeth were glowing black and blue. "Heavenly Wolf!" He was engulfed just as the words flashed across his mind. Boom! Honorable Zhu Liu was knocked heavily toward the ground, the blood spewing out of his throat in gouts at least dozens of meters long. The second he hit the ground, the Dragon Emperor's claw hit him again without mercy. The earth instantly crumbled exaggeratedly. The fact that the attack caused a terrible spatial storm across the whole domain of the dragons showed just how deadly it was. The Dragon Emperor removed his claw, revealing a bruised and bloodied Honorable Zhu Liu at the center of the crater. Nearly half his bones had shattered from the impact alone. Still, he was a level 8 divine master. He wasn't going down easily. His eyes regained their focus once more, but a delicate, colorful figure suddenly jumped off the head of the Dragon Emperor of Absolute Beginning. It looked like a girl. There was a flash of rippling colors, and blue divine light suddenly enveloped the whole area. A huge sword at least 3 meters long dropped down on Honorable Zhu Liu while accompanied by the roar of a heavenly wolf. It was almost as powerful as the Dragon Emperor's roar. "You are..." Honorable Zhu Liu only managed to say 2 words before the blue sword pierced his solar plexus like it was made of rotten wood. It mercilessly nailed the guardian of eternal heaven god realm to the shattered ground. Bang! The pierced body suddenly exploded into pieces. However, both the body and the fluid inside it turned to dust before they could scatter to the surroundings.